Good morning, good afternoon, even good evening to some of you out there, especially my first guest. Welcome to my Coffee with Bob MS Multiple Sclerosis Telethon. I have to admit, I'm a little bit nervous. I've never done this before, so it's going to be a unique experience for us all. The whole idea behind this, and if you look at where my name should be right here, right, that's the URL so you can donate to help support the MS Society. The MS Society does so much good for those of us who suffer with MS, multiple sclerosis, like myself. I was diagnosed in 1998 and have been battling it ever since. And I have good days and bad days, but I count myself as being blessed from a lot of other people who, have to deal with it much more aggressively than I do. So I got 4 hours to fill, and I have a bunch of people that I'd like to introduce and bring on. The first person that I want to bring on is someone who I've been connected with for actually quite a while. 𝗪𝗶𝗰 is out of Saudi Arabia. She, I think last year, published an amazing book called The Algorithm of Life that I highly recommend to you. And today, her son is actually publishing a book too, which I also read and is amazing, but I want you guys to hear it from her. So I'd like to welcome you, 𝗪𝗶𝗰. Hey, 𝗪𝗶𝗰, how are you?
Hello, thank you so much for having me again here, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm so glad and really appreciate you agreeing to come join this and help me fill 4 hours of content. I know you don't have a lot of time because I know you're getting ready for the book launch for your son. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that book launch really quickly?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I'm so excited and so happy that actually we made this a reality. It actually started long time back, I would say, in 2020, basically. So the first idea was the kind of a giraffe news was developed by my kids, and they were actually having fun with a cousin when I actually visited my sister in Dubai in 2020 before the launch of my book. So my kids knew that I was working on my book and this, and but anyways, they had this idea of giraffe, or they started they with the cousins. They made this giraffe news with the cousins only, so they used to share some kind of snippet about giraffe's adventure with a cousin, with the kind of which the mascot that they use through Apple iPhone. And so that's where the beginning is started. Then of course my book launched. I mean, I launched my book, and my kids were really got inspired, and all of them were very happy, and especially my youngest one. And he actually shared a couple of times that he wanted to become author. He wanted to become kind of like, the kind of questions I share with them, or the discussion that I have about usually have with them about philosophy and psychology. So he actually has the desire to become a philosopher and author. So I used to laugh. It's like, okay, this is, I mean, you're too young to say that. And anyways, and then of course we like time passed by, and during that time, like, he usually used to tell me most of the time that he is not happy with the current education. He used to say that school is bad, I don't want to go to school, and this is the school
Oh,
is. And then he actually, since he was kind of so frustrated, that he tries to convince me with kind of research. He used to do a lot of research, and then he said, look, mom, this is bad because of this reason. And then he said and we used to have long argument about this, and like, okay, it is bad, but you have to go. And like, I know that of course there are flaws in this, and he used to come with the proper research, and he tries to give me some, figures and facts that is the reason why it is bad. Like, it is 400-year-old, and it imports so much emphasis on grading and test and everything. And so anyways, this was also happening. And given that, my actually, because my I discussed with my kids about philosophy, psychology, so they have kind of a little bit of different mindset when they actually even speak up in their class. And that's exactly what I felt also, that my kids, especially when they try to fit in, they feel the struggle, and that's what they feel. And then especially when it doesn't, sometimes it doesn't reflect in their grades, and sometimes, so he used to get frustrated with that, like, he knows that he knows much better than that, and he said, like, it doesn't reflect in the grade. And but I'm okay with that. I said, like, okay, you don't have to focus too much or put so much emphasis on the grades or something, because um it's just a number.
I think she
What
froze
you
up on
know. Okay. Okay, is it good? Okay. Okay.
Now you're back. You're back.
Okay, that's great. So, anyways, these kind of discussions we used to have, and then we decided, said, like, okay, since he wanted to become an author, I said, okay, let's write about it when you're so passionate about it, and then he got like really excited about it. That okay, let's write about it, and then we started brainstorming. And said, okay, it's really good. At that point in time, when of course he shared with me, I started working on my second book, and I also wanted to launch my coaching program. So I was working on these two. I had my timelines. I had discussed with my mentors and everything. I had, like, everything ready. And then he said that I wanted to write a book, and I said, like, oh, that means I would have to put my things at the, like, park a little, and then need to help him out. So and that's what exactly I did. That I said, okay, I will help you out in the book, and let's work on this. And then, and especially in the summer vacation, we started this project last year, and in the summer vacation, we did almost all the work. We brainstormed, and he was very, like, because my son he was so passionate about this, that he wanted to share this, and he said, like, we did write all the things. We did stuff. We completed all this stuff, like, almost in the summers last year. And then, of course, it took a lot of time because of the editing and all the other stuff that is required. And then finally, it's happening today, and at the launch. And I'm really so happy and excited for this launch.
Yeah, that is so cool. And he's a young man, right? I mean,
Yeah.
how old your son, the author?
He is 9 at the moment, but he completed the book 8-year-olds, when he was 8-year-old. So
that's amazing.
yeah,
that's very cool. I'm gonna be joining for that launch later this afternoon, my time at least. So I'm really looking forward to that, and very happy to support on that. And actually, my spouse is going to use your book in her classroom.
Wow.
So how cool is that? That's going to be very cool.
Thank you so much.
Now,
yeah, that's
someone else who just joined, that has a young child herself and has an amazing story. My very good friend Tab the recruiter, Tabitha, and I have known each other for a bunch of years as well too, and she has an amazing story as well. And I also have to, I would be really missing out here if I didn't introduce my co-host for the entire 4 hours, who's actually going to take over for me if I have to have bathroom breaks, Dr. Irene Kopp. So thank you guys. I want to thank you guys all for joining. And I want to remind everybody that this is a telethon to raise funds for the MS Society. And instead of my name, I've got the URL that you can type out to make a totally tax deductible donation. So thank you guys all for joining. I truly appreciate it. Tab, especially you. I know Tab and Breen, I know you guys got a very limited amount of time, so I want to get to you guys both first. But I really want Tab, if you can, to share your story, because what's really cool is that this month, well, I don't know if it's this month but it's on the same month. Colon cancer awareness and MS awareness fall in the same month.
Yeah, it's now.
I don't know if this month or not.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. One of my good friends actually was diagnosed with MS, I believe, last year. And we figured out, you know, hey, you got to find the silver lining, I guess. So when we figured out that we both shared an awareness month, we were like, yeah. So.
Yeah, that's very cool. Well, and Tab, you have an amazing story, right? Let's talk about you got diagnosed with colon cancer at a very young age.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. I mean, you know, my mom had been trying to get me to get tested for this genetic mutation. I mean, in my late teens, early 20s, and I was just like, like I didn't know anything about it, so I was like, whatever. Like it never made it to my priority list. Well, I can't say never. It did ultimately, but not for a really long time. But it all started when I was pregnant with my daughter. And I started having symptoms, these weird symptoms, but you know, first pregnancy, no idea what, you know, your body's going through. I was just like, oh, I chalked it up to pregnancy stuff. And so I never said anything to anyone. It just kind of came and went. And then I had my daughter, and some of the symptoms still continued. So, you know, I had blood in my stool. I was starting to become nauseous every day, really tired. But again, I'm like, I'm a new mom. Of course I'm tired, right? So I just kind of kept saying things like that. But I started going to the doctor, and for about a year, I would tell them, you know, I'm tired, I'm dizzy, I'm nauseous every day. Like blood would come and go until finally, and nothing. It was just kind of like, oh, well, you know, like maybe it's hemorrhoids, or we hear that a lot in the colon cancer community is like, maybe it's hemorrhoids. But yeah, you know, ultimately the week of my wedding, actually, there was a ton of blood, and I went to the ER. And ultimately, you know, that week, while I'm literally sitting there doing a seating chart for my wedding, I was prepping for a colonoscopy. And yeah, did that a few days before my wedding, and we went on our honeymoon. You know, the wedding, I thank God for having a beautiful day where I felt really good that day. And, you know, we came back from our honeymoon. I got a call. You're good. No cancer. I'm like, awesome. This is great, but I still feel terrible. So what's going on? I knew I had to keep advocating for myself. The part of the story that I love is that I saw a few different surgeons to try to figure out what was going on. Heard people tell me that you're going to have a bag for the rest of your life, things like that. And I ended up finding my way to a surgeon at the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio, and I live in Pennsylvania. So it was totally random. I had gotten referred to this one surgeon who told me, I actually don't do what you need done. Go to this guy. And so I never would have had his name otherwise. And when I went to see him, not only was he wearing a Steelers lanyard, which, you know, right? I found out that his mom lived in the same tiny little town that I was currently living in at the time.
Wow.
𝗠𝗦 Pennsylvania. Like, and I was like, this is it. This is a God thing. I know you're supposed to be my surgeon. So he ended up going in, and what we thought was going to be an hour procedure, you know, 5-6 hours. Later I woke up to having had, you know, about 8 to 10 inches of my colon removed. And then about 2 weeks later had found out that it was stage 3 colon cancer. It had spread to some of my lymph nodes, and I was going to need about 6 months of chemotherapy. And this was all, I was diagnosed when I was 31, and they said, you had probably had this for 5 to 10 years with polyps growing, which is why it's so important to get your colonoscopy.
Yeah. That's amazing. It's really inspirational, you know, and I love that you're so open. I think that's one of the things that attracted us together, right? Because we had not similar stories. I mean, MS is, you know, really different than colon cancer, but our attitudes in dealing with it, I think, are very similar, right? You know, we refuse to let it get us down. We keep going. We keep advocating for ourselves and for others, which I really love. And I think you've taken that attitude and you've translated that into your career as well, right? And how you deal with people and recruitment and human resources. And if you're not connected to Tab or even Abrim or Dr. Irene, you guys need to follow these amazing people. And I just appreciate everything that I've learned from you all, you know, but the relationships that we've developed.
Super cool. Good people know good people, right? And when I look around the room, it's like, you're an amazing human, and look who you attract. And that's why
Yep.
it's so important. And I advocate for people to tell their true, authentic stories, because it feels scary at first. You're like, what are people going to think of me? Or am I sharing too much? And ultimately, you attract and repel the right people at the right time when you choose to show up as your authentic self. And so I'm really glad that that helped us cross paths and meeting other great people like 𝗪𝗶𝗀 and Dr. Irene.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think so. Early on, I don't know about you, but early on when I was first diagnosed, I never told anybody that I had MS, because I was diagnosed in 1998, right? And back then, it was almost like it would, you know, when you had cancer, people say, "Oh, she's got cancer," or "He's got MS." You know what I mean? And it was not really a death sentence per se, but people treated you differently, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's only been over the course of the last maybe dozen years that I've actually started speaking out more and advocating in trying to raise awareness.
Yeah. I remember when I was first diagnosed, you know, I was standing in my daughter's pediatrician's office when she was 2. And I'll never forget getting that call. And then, of course, you know, calling my husband, who he's in the roofing industry, and he happened to be at the top, the apex of a roof when I called and told him the news. And then it just kind of like spiraled from there. But very quickly, I was standing in my in-laws' kitchen, and I just so clearly felt like I was being given this for a reason and that I was supposed to do something with it. So from that point on, I was like, there's no way I'm going to sit back and just let this happen to me. Like, it's going to happen for me, and it's going to happen for other people. And so along the way, I decided to share my story very publicly in our town. And it started, you know, we had support. People were telling, you know, my family that they were scheduling their colonoscopies because they heard about my story. And I just felt like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Right. So yeah, it's crazy when stuff like this happens to us. You know that people are kind of talking about you, and not even necessarily badly, but just, you know, that people are talking about you. You know that they're talking about you, the fact that you have cancer. And in some cases, they don't know what to say, so they say nothing. And I remember the first undie run that I did, which was the Colorectal Cancer Alliance's like run and walk event. They asked me to be the survivor speaker that year. And so I stood up in front of, you know, hundreds of people and shared a little bit about my story. And my call to action for them was, even if you don't know what to say something, because we realized it's not going to be perfect. And it was a call for the survivors and the people going through colon cancer too, because a lot of times you hear people when you're going through something, it's easy to be offended. And I was trying to teach people to take a posture of not being offended by when someone's just trying to say something, because they don't know what to say. It's awkward, it's uncomfortable. They're like, my words aren't going to take cancer away. What could I possibly say? But my call to action was just like, basically talk to each other and be open and say, I don't know what to say, but like, I'm here for you, you know, and try to figure out ways to show up for people, whether it's bringing them a meal, being an ear for them to listen. If you have the funds, order someone to come clean their house, you know, that month. Whatever you can do, you know, because it's ultimately when you're not communicating that breakdown, you think, oh, well, they'll just tell me if they need something. I promise you they won't.
Yeah.
So,
right.
You have to just like, if you want to be proactive about it, like you have to figure out those ways to show up. And it starts by, you know, telling the truth. So
yeah, no, that's amazing. And that's the thing that I learned. You know, it took me a while to learn that, right? You know, kind of mentally dealing with it. I think one of the coolest things that actually happened to me very recently was picking up the book, The Algorithm of Life. That's 𝗪𝗶𝗀's book that came out. And I recommend that for you, Tabitha, too. If you could pick that up, I think it does a lot of good. 𝗪𝗀, talk a little bit about The Algorithm of Life in your thoughts behind. I mean, it fits very well for people like me who are dealing with a long-term kind of disease, and survivors like Tabitha. I think there's some really good advice in there, and there's some really good thoughts in there that we could apply.
Yeah, thank you so much. Actually, thank you so much for bringing it up here. Yeah, it took me actually 20 years to write this book, and yes, I've gone through a lot of experiences and gone through a lot of observation about the people, and then yes, this I mean, there is a lot. I mean, we can do, which we feel that we are not able to do. And when we just realize who we are and what we are, our potential, then we can achieve a lot. So that's one thing, that one message I wanted to give also. And the main thing we've discussed this before also, and that the main message I wanted to give through this book is that we can take charge of our destiny. We can take charge. We are not slaves of our destiny, because and that question usually came to me, or I used to think more about it, because I'm a palmist, and when I used to read palm, then I said, like, okay, if someone has kind of a bad luck or something, that how they can avoid their bad luck, because if it's in their palm, I used to feel that they can't avoid it. But then I realized that no, that is not true. They can actually avoid if they think that there's a bad luck in their palm, or if they've been given some kind of a bad luck, so they can avoid it. But how they can avoid it is, again, it's a complete algorithm that how they can do it. So in what I have written in my book, and what the message I have given, is basically that things happen for a reason, right? And when we actually accept it, as like you guys, especially, I'm so inspired by the story of Tab, and of yours as well, that you have been faced with such traumatic experience, or I would say, like, when you would say that there's no way out, yet you survive. And the reason you survive is that you have the faith that you can come out from that phase, and you try to look for some ways out, so that could give you some way out from that situation, from that trauma. So anyways, I'll just give you a brief, because the theory, if I just share it, that how you can take charge of your destiny is, you need to realize that you are more than just physical being. You are a spiritual being, right? And what I've shared in my book is that the entire world is governed by the physical laws, right? And so everything is kind of, you can say, this kind of predestined or predetermined, because if we see that even if you just take a look at the sun, like it comes out every day, and it is happening for 14 billion years, right? It doesn't change. I mean, not as it doesn't, I mean, it cannot be delayed by a single second, right? So it's kind of these entire algorithms are running, and it is following the same thing. Even if we look at our free will, we think that we have free will, but even if you look at like neurosciences or even physics, it says that we actually, our mind decides everything before it comes to our consciousness. Like the few milliseconds before it comes to our consciousness, our mind has already decided that what action, what decision we were going to take. So all of this leads to think that this is the entire world, the physical world is governed by all these algorithms. So how we can break those algorithms? Because if I have been given that kind of algorithm to have that kind of destiny, which I don't want, so how we can do this? And the main thing we can do is that first, as I said, that we are more than just physical being. So our soul is the main, I would say, the main thing. We are energy beings, and so that operates above and beyond this physical realm. So when we know that we are more than that, that means you are already powerful. You realize that you have that power. And when I say that we are more than physical being, that means we are soul. Soul means we are energy. That everything is energy, and then we can manipulate the energy, right? Because when you know that you are energy, you're not just a physical being. You are energy. Then that means you know how to manipulate the energy around you, and how you can do it. So if you just look at yourself, what is the main energy source in your body, so you will just realize that your thoughts are the actually source of the energy, because it is the main thing that creates changes internally, like in your, like you must have, you must know about the like neuroplasticity. For example, if you are keep on thinking, if you're training your brain to think about something, or if you're training, or you're developing a new habit, you know, the entire physiology and inside you changes just because, you know, the way you train your brain. And of course, everything starts with your thoughts, right? When you think that you need to create this, or you need to develop this habit, you are changing the internal physiology that is called the neuroplasticity. The other thing we found out that the quantum physics tells us that our thoughts has the power to bring about the change in the surrounding and the outer world as well, right? And how does it happen is basically because, as I mentioned, that thoughts are energy. We are energy beings, right? You know, our soul creates all these thoughts or triggers these thoughts to actually at least choose what we want to have these thoughts in our mind, right? So when we choose to think positive, or when we, and here I connect with the purpose, because when you know that what is your purpose, and then you have the desire to follow that purpose. For example, in your case, if you refuse to give up on that, if you refuse to accept that, no, I don't want to give up to this disease, I can live. So what you're doing is you are creating a positive sort of like, first of all, neuroplasticity inside in changes inside your body, and also sending the same message to the universe that you can change your destiny. Like, for example, you don't want to die with this cancer, you have better life. So you are sending constantly messages to the universe, and then this energy creates entanglement. That's the concept of the quantum physics, that when the entanglement happens, the two particles become, you know, entangled with each other. So one particle can create change in the other particle. And that is exactly what happens when you send the message to the universe. You attract, right, whatever the events you want in the life. And I have seen multiple, like thousands of people, I would say, that whenever you decide to actually change your or do something, right? Like, for example, if you want to become a coach, or if you want to do something in the start new venture, right? And then you will see that you will start meeting people from that field or something, and that's gonna help you to go to that direction, right? So this is how it happens, that, you know, you change your destiny, or you change your destiny like by attracting those events in your life that helps you move towards your purpose or towards your goal. So this is just a brief concept or theory that I had shared in my book, that how you can use these algorithms to take charge of your destiny.
Yeah, it's an amazing book. I really do highly recommend it, and I think there's something in it that everybody can get something out of. And it sort of reminds me of some of the teachings that or coaching that I've gotten from Dr. Iriene over the at this point years now. And like Iriene, right? Dr. Iriene has kind of a dual kind of educational background, right, in both Eastern and Western type of medicines. I mean, Iriene has a master's degree in psychology. Yes. Yeah. So you both have that scientific background, right, as well as that Eastern medicine type of background. And I have to say that the coaching that I've received over the years from Iriene, Dr. Iriene, has helped me more than medication that I take for my MS, right? So Dr. Iriene, talk a little bit about, you know, what your background is and how you help folks just like 𝗪𝗡 does.
𝗪𝗡, I have to say, first of all, like I was like soaking in, like geeking out on the quantum physics that you were dishing out. That was awesome. I was like, oh, she's talking my language. So thank you. So we'll have to like talk sometime and geek out. Sure. So my background, as you said, Bob, is a compilation of, I like to call it holistic medicine, WHOLE, holistic medicine that spans Eastern and Western medicine. Yes, I have a medical degree. I also have a doctor of chiropractic, acupuncture, and multiple certifications like in brain injury, neuroplasticity, neurophysiological meditation. And I essentially, and more, I won't bother listing all of them, but it's like, literally, it's like you, Embry, and I've brought them together. And it's like you, I needed to find the answers to heal my son against all odds from a catastrophic brain injury. And to this day, he's still missing like 20% of his brain, was not supposed to walk, talk, or pass high school, and does both of those, and has, graduated as an engineer from one of the best schools in the world. So proud mama moment. I cried, I admit it. And, and it was totally worthwhile. But it's like, I'm not being arrogant when I say I have like all those. It's like you, I went wherever I had to go to get the answers. Because as far as I was concerned, when the neurosurgeon told me that prognosis, that he wouldn't walk, talk, or pass high school, is like every fiber of my being just totally rebelled and went, not on my watch. And it was bucking the system against one of the foremost pediatric neurosurgeons in the world. And so I had to go toe to toe with them, or I chose to go toe to toe with them and advocate for my son, taught him how to advocate for himself. Belief is it's not everything, and it's critical. It's a vital part of the answer and the solution. And so I taught my son every single day that, you can do whatever you choose to in life. You are a genius. Like I just kept saying that over and over and over again. And yeah, it's tough right now. Guess what? When the going gets tough for everyone else, this is just training for you. This is just basic training. So you're going to keep going when everyone else gives up. And that's exactly what's happened. But I had to lend him that belief. We talk in our courses and with my clients about using the placebo effect. In other words, which is really the power of your mind. And, research says it's like about, they used to say 35%, it's actually about 50% of the results, even in research studies. And so when you can layer the placebo effect just means essentially, like Henry Ford once said, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. Right? It's like you have either the placebo, which is the positive, or the nocebo, which is the negative. You believe you can't, right? So when you can layer on all of the placebo effects that are at your disposal, then you can ramp up your belief into total expectation. Again, as you said, Embry, it's like it's beyond belief. It is expectation. It's like there's just this calm knowingness. It's like, yeah, we don't think about, yay, the sun's going to come up tomorrow, right? No, it's like, yeah, okay. So short of something happening is way beyond my control, the sun's coming up tomorrow. Enough said. Don't have to think about that. On to the next thing, right? So yeah, it's that. If I can say one thing to everybody, all of our listeners, it's like, I truly, truly believe, and this is having like all that, education and experience, everything is possible. Everything is healable. We just maybe don't have the answers. And I mean healable. I don't just mean manageable. But if you don't believe it, it's never going to happen. And that is the most important thing, that if I could say one thing to everyone, that is it.
That's amazing. Yeah. And Tab, so how do you talk to your daughter about all this? I mean, what kind of, because she went through this with you at a very young age, right? I mean, in vitro.
She doesn't remember anything, which is good, because she was just turning 2 right after I was diagnosed. I'm trying to think, I was diagnosed in January, and then that March she turned 2. So thankfully, she doesn't remember any of it, but we do talk about it. She knows it's a part of my life, and because I want to teach her the things that I learned from it. And I don't have any fancy degrees. I don't, you know, and all the things. I don't have a medical degree, or, I mean, you guys have such amazing backgrounds. But one thing I was thinking the whole time, that I summarized it as everything you said so wonderfully, Ambreen and Dr. Irene. To me, it was strong ass mindset. And that was something that came out of my colon cancer journey. Was I knew that my body could do anything that my mind said it could. And mixed with my faith, I just knew that it was, no matter what happened, it was going to be okay. And I was going to use it for the best that I could, regardless. I didn't know if I was going to die or not. I look at colon cancer, you know, I've been to conferences and I look at pictures I've been in with other patients and survivors at the time. And in some cases, I'm the only one left. And that is heavy. It is a heavy blessing. But I promised that I was never going to stop fighting for those that couldn't anymore. And so that's part of what comes into with my daughter, is just teaching her that grit, that perseverance, that, like you said, Dr. Irene, when everyone else is giving up, like, you're going to keep going. And that was like, it reminds me of a story, which might not seem like a big deal, but this is like what I want to encourage people to celebrate, the little milestones, the things that might not seem like a big deal along the way. Because I remember when I was just about to finish up chemo, they had taken out one of the drugs that was just like debilitating. I mean, after my like 9th chemo, I remember I couldn't even get out of the car. I had to have someone physically come lift me out of the car and help me walk into the house as I crawled up my, you know, split level home stairs at the time because of this one drug. And so that's just to show you, I mean, I was bedridden, couch ridden for the most part. And when I had that drug removed, I'll never forget the first time I mowed my lawn. It was, I used a push mower, and for 45 minutes, I went outside and I mowed the entire lawn. And I came back in and I climbed to the top of my stairs and I cried like a baby, because I was like, I did it. Like, I did this thing that all these months I have not been able to do. And so it was like that little thing that normally day to day, you're not going outside crying your eyes out because you're mowing your lawn and you come back in. No, you're not thinking about it like that. But when you're in a situation like I was in, and like many other people are in, whatever your battle is, they all look different, you know, but it's like looking at those moments where you did win that day. 5 days after chemo, when I showered for the first time, because I had to go back to the hospital because I was so lethargic after my first chemo. So 5 days later, when I could get out of bed, get in the shower and bathe myself, that was a huge win, you know? But now I wake up and take a shower and I'm not like celebrating. Like, yeah, you showered today, Tab. I mean, maybe sometimes, right? But so.
Yeah, I think it's I think no matter what you're dealing with, right? Whether it's, you know, a cancer battle of some type, or MS, or other types of diseases like that, you really have to enjoy the little victories, right? I mean, that's the kind of stuff that keeps you going. I see this all the time with the people that I know that have MS. There are those that just give into it. And I've always said that I'm not going to give it, even before I started being more vocal about it. I always said I was never going to give into it. I remember when I was diagnosed, I'm in the hospital, right? They thought I had a stroke. That's what they thought, because the right side of my face was all, you know, and I couldn't hold on to anything. I couldn't stand, and I was weak and stuff. And when I got diagnosed, my dad happened to be there, and at that time we were building our house. I mean, I think the walls were up. They were on the inside of the house, you know, and we were getting ready to you know, close so we can move in. And it was a few weeks before that I got diagnosed. And first thing my dad says to me, not how you're doing, he asked me if we're going to sell the house now. I said, we didn't even move in yet. Why would you think I'd want to sell it? And he said, well, it has stairs, because it's a 2-story with a basement, right? He said, you're not going to be able to do the stairs. I said, the hell that I'm not. And, you know, we've been here 26 years now. And yeah, I'm getting ready to have a ranch at this point. But it's certainly not because of my MS. It's just because, you know, I'm tired of the stairs at this point. And that's what I tell people all the time. You know, I've learned, you know, on the days where it's difficult for me to hold a pen, right? Or even difficult to read. You know, I use different tools like otter.ai to take notes for meetings for me and then translate those meetings into a document, right? I use voice to text when I'm messaging people. You know, forgive me guys, when I send you a message and it sounds like it's all grammar messed up, it's because I'm using voice to text, because like, you know, even typing sometimes gets a little bit difficult. It all depends on the day, but I think you learn how to adjust your life, right? And keep pushing forward. And I think, you know, Dr. Irene, that was one of the things I remember, you know, early on when I took your first boot camp, you know, and Tabitha, when I first met you, the strong ass mindset, we had that conversation. That was one of our first conversations, was the strong ass mindset. I think that's one of the things that you coach, Dr. Irene, was it was about mindset as well as the exercises and the different techniques that you were teaching.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mindset is, and I love the kick-ass mindset, the positive mindset. And it goes deeper than that, if I may. And that is like what we teach, and where I see what I call the so-called miraculous results, like yours, Bob, is that mindset happens at the conscious level, like in your prefrontal cortex. The challenge is when you are in survival mode, stress mode, trauma mode, illness mode, injury mode, right? You could say most of the world fits into that. It is that literally, it's like giving yourself a frontal lobotomy, and it kicks your prefrontal cortex offline so that you can't think logically. You can't come up with creative solutions. You cannot make good decisions, and you cannot galvanize yourself into action, to take action on those decisions. And most importantly, you cannot inhibit those, what I like to call the Hulk mode emotions, and the worry wart emotions, and the crying at the drop of a hat emotions, because you're not in charge. Your thinking cap is not in charge. It's your unconscious mind that runs the show 99% of the time, especially when you're in survival mode. So one of the first things that we teach are what I call SOS tools. And it's like, what are those SOS tools that you can use in, you know, a few seconds, in a few, you know, less than a minute or less than 5 minutes, to literally shift your nervous system from survival mode into healing mode, into success mode, into logic mode, into creative mode, because you cannot be in the same place at the same time. And only after you do that, and you literally, it's like bringing your prefrontal cortex back online, your executive rock star team, as I call it, and only then does mindset work. So yes, absolutely, mindset is so very key. Just that one vital step first. And there's so many different ways to do it, and we often do it without even realizing it, right? And sometimes we need help. So it's smart to ask for help.
I was just going to say that, Dr. Irene, I feel like all the things you're saying, I don't know anything about it from that like granular level, but it was just it just happened for me. You know, I think that's important to note too, but for some people it doesn't. So when you feel like you're stuck in this rut place, whatever you want to call it, yeah, you do have to ask for help. Because it might just not magically happen. But yeah, for me, it felt like I naturally poured myself into what I felt like I was supposed to do, which was be in service of others. I remember after my first chemo, you know, I was volunteering when I started to feel better. Luckily, it was on a good week. And I was volunteering at a colorectal cancer event, and it just clicked for me. That was that's maybe not for everyone, and that's okay. But for me, pouring myself into the service of others during that time switched something, you know? So yeah, it's interesting. I love that you brought that up.
Yeah,
I
think it's so important. And I want to just say hi to a couple people who are joining remotely off of LinkedIn. Patricia Regal, did I say that right, Tab? Patricia Regal. Is
Yeah,
that her
hey
name? Deb
Patricia.
introduced me to Patricia. We're connected now, and Patricia has MS as well too, and she made a nice comment. I thought that I'm going to put it back up there again. That I thought was amazing.
I'm gonna cry.
The first time she could actually chop garlic is when she finally, that was a big moment for her, and that's so amazing. And I'm so glad that she shared that with us. So thank you. And Olivia has been dropping into, so just want to make sure we say hi to that, Olivia. And then my good friend Krista, she's in the south of France right now, and she's stopping by to say hi. So that's amazing too. So I want to thank all you guys who are dropping by to watch on. And I gotta admit, I'm nervous today because we're streaming to LinkedIn, we're streaming to YouTube, and now we're streaming to X as well. So Twitter. So hopefully, we're going to make a big impact and a big splash everywhere. And I'm very passionate about MS research and advocating for people who have MS because it's one of those hidden diseases, right? I mean, I remember, the first time I told someone that I have, they expected me to come walking in a wheelchair with leg braces, that it impacts everybody differently, right? For me, in fact, I was having a conversation with our CFO yesterday, and she asked me, how's your MS? Pretty good. How does it affect you? And I said, well, I said, if you slap me in the right side of my face, I'm not going to feel it. and because that way, I said, I have a hard time holding things, and my legs are feeling a little weak right now. She was, wow. She goes, we could never tell. So it just goes to show you that with something like MS or even colon cancer for that matter, or any type of cancer, it's the stuff that's happening inside to people that you don't see. That's why it's important, as Tab said, to get involved, to volunteer, to reach out, to ask someone. Sometimes all it takes is how are you feeling today? I belong to an MS group that is virtual, right? And it's just a bunch of local people. When I say local, I mean kind of the United States, that are in this MS online group. And, I check in on a regular basis just to make sure people are doing okay. And, everybody's always talking about their stories. And even that type of virtual connection, I think, is important, right? It just gives us all that knowledge, that warmth, that connection that someone is thinking about us, that someone is supporting us and taking us through. But I have to admit, I especially like working and talking to people who are kind of giving into it, right? I'm not going to mention any names, but I have this one young lady that we know and very well, who was diagnosed maybe about 3 or 4 months ago, I think. And so she's still in that phase of getting used to it, I think. But she's really given herself permission to give into it a little bit. And so I'm slowly kind of poking and tweaking, saying, okay, you're strong, you're a strong woman, and you're amazing. You can get through this. So, I think it's sort of like what Tab was talking about, that strong ass mindset, right? That kind of takes everything over if you let it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe you could connect her with Patricia too. I'm sure you're obviously a wonderful resource for her, but I think about sometimes, in the cancer community, it's having to get people to open up. And that's why I shared my story in the support group, because the support groups can feel very overwhelming. In the colon cancer group, we had over 10,000 people at that time, about 7 years ago. And you're hearing all sorts of stories, and you're hearing people dying. And when you're newly diagnosed, that's super terrifying, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, it's sharing your story. And that, again, like, I believe that it really just, God used me to share my story. People would see it, and they would come to me behind the scenes and say, thank you so much for sharing your story. Like, it resonates with me. Can we work together one-on-one? Because the support group is just a little bit too overwhelming. So while I think support groups absolutely have their place, I'm certainly not, digging on them at all. It helps you to create, like you said, some of those one-on-one connections that you wouldn't have otherwise had. And if you're not sharing your story, then you can't have those connections.
Right.
So, yeah, it's incredible that you're doing that to help her, because it's very lonely. And when you're first diagnosed, you can feel like, Even if you know, okay, I know other people in this life have been diagnosed with colon cancer. My grandfather had 7 cancers in his lifetime before he recently passed away from like the 7th or 8th one. So, but it can feel lonely. You can feel like, I don't want to talk about it. Nobody talks about poo. Like, I don't think I should talk about that because that's taboo. Like, that's bad, right? But then you start talking about it, you realize, I mean, I've had people, literally, I've been on phone calls with people and we've gotten to the topic because they see it in my headline and they're like, I'm going to call and make an appointment right after this call. I'm like, all right, do it. And then text me the date of your appointment. And they do. And it's like, I bet you never thought you'd be asked to get a colonoscopy today on a phone call, huh?
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, so.
Well, and that's one of
no, actually, I just wanted to say that it's really important. You just touched so much rightly that we need to speak our stories because that connects with the people. Because even like I advocate a lot about mental health, and that is the same with the mental health, because a lot of people going through depression and like having some suicidal thoughts, and just because they think that they're alone and they think that they have been, whatever they've been suffering is like no one else can understand. But when you start sharing your stories, people think that, okay, this has happened to them also and they survive. So they give them, like, your story can give them a hope. And when they find hope, it gives them a reason to live for at least one more day. And maybe that one day can change their life. So this is very important. I mean, I really, really agree with what you said, that, we need to come up and share our stories, because this is the way we can actually give other people some hope to live maybe just one more day, and that can change their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to go first. Yeah, we have to go first, because if you wait for someone else to do it and they don't do it, then you miss out on that opportunity, right? There's a 𝗀𝗪 𝗪𝗏, and I shouldn't even be saying it, but hopefully go look it up because I can't remember all the words from it. But there's a 𝗀𝗪 𝗪𝗏 poem. It's very short. It's about the blue people or whatever. And it's basically like, you're blue, I'm blue, but we never told each other. And so we crossed paths in this life without even knowing it. And I'm totally paraphrasing it. But it's something that I love. It's a reminder to do that, because you go first, and you going first almost gives someone a permission that they didn't even know that they needed to then be able to unload what is so heavy in them. And then to your point, 𝗪𝗛, it's just a whole new level of like, I got off that call and I felt hope again for the first time in a long time. And that is a powerful, powerful motivator. So
yeah, that's amazing. That's very cool. And I think one of the things that actually having MS taught me too is that you never know what's going on inside of another person, right? And it wasn't until I started speaking up and telling my own story and sharing my story that I was able to develop better relationships with other people, deeper relationships with other people. I mean, the three of us right here, 𝗪𝗛 and Dr. Irene and Tabitha, we all met through LinkedIn, right? Yet we've developed these relationships basically a world away. And 𝗪𝗛's out of Saudi Arabia. It's what, about 8, 9 o'clock at night by you, I think?
No, it's almost 6 o'clock.
Almost 6 o'clock. Okay, yeah, getting those times right. Dr. Irene is in. Are you in Portugal? I forgot where you're at now.
Yeah, I'm in the south of Portugal right now.
Okay, so you're 6 hours ahead.
So I'm closer to 𝗪𝗛 right now.
There you go. Yeah, and Tab, you're in Pennsylvania, so you're an hour ahead. I mean, that's just. I mean, it just shows you the power of speaking up, right? And actually reaching out and developing relationships. And, I can't even tell you guys, I know what attracted me to Dr. Irene, right? Someone introduced us and said, hey, I think Dr. Irene can help you out. But I don't even remember how Tab or 𝗪𝗛 and I got connected. It just sort of happened. It goes back to the algorithm of life, right? We start attracting like people who are going to make differences in your lives. And I have to say that, you all have made differences in my life in a very positive fashion.
Yeah, I love that comment. I'm glad you're putting it up.
So we have
I don't know if you know what the rest of it says, or into overhead, maybe. Can you see the rest of it on your side?
I can. And this is from a LinkedIn user. As someone who has recently become disabled. Okay, another thing for MF, I got to put glasses on. I'm disabled as a result of illness. I found people are willing to help, certainly, but in a lot of cases, those of us with hidden disabilities, people look at you quite skeptically. Yep, I look relatively healthy usually, but I can't fit anything heavy. I can't lift anything heavy and can't twist in certain directions without pretty good pain. So I know people look at me strangely when I pre-board an aircraft, must think I'm a line jumper or need help putting my groceries into. It can't read that. It went on too long for me. So I'm assuming into her overhead car or something like that. Yeah, no, I understand that. Been there, done that, and it's just, again, all we can do, right, is advocate for you never know what's going on inside of another person. So you always have to act with kindness, right? You always have to assume the best, not assume the worst, like a line jumper, because they're able to pre-board, things of that nature. Here we go. Here's Chef Jill, who's going to be on later on the show because we got to fill 4 hours. So we'll see Chef Jill later. Hopefully she's going to cook something for us. But again, I think it's it's important, and it's really taught me over the years. And part of that is being Christian too, and whatever your background is, that teaches that type of thing. Kindness really does matter, right? And you never know. I mean, there are days where I don't want to get out of bed and don't feel like getting out of bed, but I do anyway because you just have to. You can't give into it. There are days, just last week, it was really stressful in the office, and I was just sore. So I kind of hid out my office because I just didn't feel like walking around and smiling and joking because I'm the guy in the office that keeps everything light, So, and I think people need to remember that for other folks. And as one of the things that I loved about reading The Algorithm of Life, 𝗵𝗶, you talk about that, right? Because like attracts like.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so actually, I might have to leave now because for 2 reasons. There's my son's book launch, and it's Ramadan here, and we fast during this month for the entire day from dawn to dusk. So this is almost in 20 minutes we'll be breaking our fast. So I would have to leave now, and I'll see you at the launch.
Yeah, very good. Thank you so much for joining us, 𝗵𝗶. And everyone, please, if you're on for those of you on LinkedIn, make sure you connect, follow, and engage with 𝗵𝗶. Pick up The Algorithm of Life. It's on Amazon.com today. And your son's book again?
It's
can you announce it or no?
Yeah. It's today is the launch day, so it's already it's the Curious Giraffe. It's basically my son has raised voice against to share the frustration about the education system. So it's a short novel. So I'm so excited. I'm so proud that my son has actually followed my footsteps. So and thank you so much for having me today on this show. And I really enjoyed and I got inspired by listening to the story of Tab and Dr. Irene. I will definitely connect with you if I'm not connected. I think we are connected already, but we'll definitely connect on one-on-one to know more about each other. So thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, 𝗵𝗶. I appreciate it. We'll see you at the launch.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, and now there were 3.
And
so 𝗵𝗶, I would just love, sorry, 𝗵𝗶, I'm awful with names, but I know you. Tabitha, I want to go back really quickly, and this has been a wonderful conversation. I just want to backtrack a little bit and say, number one, you have been what I call a healing hero. And that actually was, when you said, I really do believe that was probably what saved you. That decision to help others put you into heroic mode rather than victim mode. Right? Which then enabled you to be the example of possibility for everyone else and to give them permission to speak up about and be vulnerable, so that they didn't feel like they're like an island unto themselves and all alone and, out on that raw, ragged edge. And you know, and you said, well, I don't have any education. It's like, yeah, you do. You do. It's just, it's different. It's more important, I think. People always say, so what puts, you know, sets you apart from other people? And I said, really, it's not my degrees. It's that I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
And I can relate to people because I've been there, and they feel that they can relate to me. So please, 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 please never think that because you don't have some fancy degree behind your name that you're not enough and not able to tell this, because you're right there, woman.
Yeah, thank you. No, I appreciate, you know, that others have gone out there and gotten the different education, and I just didn't go that route. But you're absolutely right. It was like we were all coming from different places, but we were saying the same things, just in different ways. Because every time you guys were going into the deep science behind things, and I just kept hearing strong ass mindset. And to your point, it's deeper than you talked about it being the frontal lobe or whatever, and it is deeper than that. But it is, when it's a lived experience, it's kind of hard for it to go away. You know, I don't want to forget what I went through, and not because it defines me every single day, but I want to remember, because there's so many people, and I'm like, why didn't they get a chance to still be here? You know, I want to quickly talk about my friend Whit and Sarah Johnston, who's a really well-known career coach on LinkedIn. We met before, you know, she kind of blew up on LinkedIn, and we had become good friends. And, you know, even the power, again, of community and telling your story is, in the power of LinkedIn is that during that time, you know, when I was going through everything, she helped organize a meal train for me and my family. Later on, years later, about 2 years ago, she introduced me to someone in her local town she saw in a mom's group who had shared she was recently diagnosed with colon cancer. Immediately thought of me because of all the times I had shared about that. And I met her, and her name's Whitney. And Whit, unfortunately, about 6 months into our relationship, passed away. And she left behind, you know, a small daughter and a small son. And I have a picture of her on my fridge. I think of her every day. And it just is a reminder to me. I think we should be reminded. I don't think we should forget. Some people want to move on and like pretend like it, you know, didn't happen. And for me, it's a balance, right? You can't live in it, but you also can't forget it, because there's so many other people battling that aren't here. And I feel like it's a privilege and a blessing for me to still be here, to get to do this work that I love, to constantly, you know, connection is my thing. So recruitment was a natural fit for me after I got out of chemo. And, you know, I had some really great people that gave me a chance to get into that, seeing all the transferable skills. And that's the other thing, what I look for in people is not just degrees. A degree is, I mean, I respect people that have gone to school. After my bachelor's, I was like, like, I'm going to keep learning, but I can't keep going to school like that. It just wasn't for me. And, you know, I look for that in people. I look for that grit. I look for the people that have been athletes, that have been through something. I want to know, tell me about the biggest challenge. Don't even make it professional. Like, what's your biggest personal challenge? How did you overcome it? What does life look like now on the other side of that? And so those are the things that are really important to me. And just seeing someone, and to your point, Bob, it's, we all battle things every day. You know, I've got tons of pains from going through chemo, and sometimes similarly, like my fingers, got some neuropathy in my hands and my feet. And so I can't always type. So that's why I send a lot of voice memos to people.
Yeah.
And that is a way of adapting to the situation. Right. But to your point, like I have a lot of stomach issues. And so it's like, you know, but people don't know, you can't see that. I don't wear it as like a badge on the outside. So it's like waking up every day knowing that someone may have acted a certain way because they woke up and had the worst morning of their entire life, but you're not wearing it on their forehead with a Post-it note. So it's like, you have to come from a different perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. Right. I mean, and your story has just always amazed me ever since the first day that I met you. You're kind of like my LinkedIn little sister sort of person. And I've always been so in awe of what you do. And I've kind of watched your journey over the years. I mean, we've known each other now for several years, and watched you transition. Excuse, my chair keeps slipping, watched you transition into several opportunities, and it's been amazing to watch you grow.
I just feel blessed that I get to keep doing that and what I love. And, you know, recruitment, anyone that knows recruitment on any level is probably pretty aware that, you know, we're some of the first to go when a company needs to cut, when they're not hiring, you know, they don't need us anymore. And it's been a journey, but I feel like that experience I had with colon cancer, to your point, Dr. 𝗪𝗓𝗂, and to yours as well, is just to not give up. There's always a way. And sometimes it's just about pivoting and finding that different, you know, the different pathway. And for me, I had to pivot out of recruitment into global employer branding for a little bit to get back into recruitment. But at the end of the day, it was always about people. So I feel like there's plenty of ways to do that. And in this market today, since I'm a recruiter, you know, I'm thinking from this mindset, but it's, you know, you're having to pivot right now. You're having to like look at other opportunities, look at industries that don't feel as sexy. Maybe you're coming from software, but now you have to look at, you know, oil and gas or manufacturing, things that you're like, maybe would have never considered, but it's always about looking for the other options and using what you've been given, because we all have that.
Yeah.
So
it's amazing. I saw a headline today on LinkedIn that by 2030, there's going to be something like 23 million vacancies because people are dropping out of the workforce, and they're all becoming gig workers, I guess. I mean, I don't know. So I mean, from a recruiting perspective, it's going to be an interesting time over the next few years.
Yeah, it's always ebbing and flowing. Oh, Patricia's still here. I thought she left. She said 100%, but yeah, it's true. I mean, things are always ebbing and flowing in recruitment. Sometimes it's the candidate-driven market. Sometimes it's an employer-driven market. It's like why a couple years ago it was such a big deal. Every company was doing all these diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, and it's why the second the market flipped, all those people got let go. And now it's no longer a priority because companies don't need that, quote unquote. If you're not watching, I'm doing quotes because I believe that it's always needed on, you know, some level to care about your people, right? But now because it's more of an employer-driven market, that's shifted. And now it's like, well, we don't have to offer all these cool things anymore that we offered because people need us. And we've got tons of laid off people to choose from. So if you don't like what we offer, someone else will because they need a job. And this is the way that a lot of companies are viewing things right now.
Yeah.
So
and that's a shame.
And you've got workers that don't want to work, right? I mean, we all seen it. Companies locally, mom and pop shops that can't be open their normal hours, or, you know, things like that. They don't have enough people that actually want to get out of bed every day and work. I'm like, what is happening? I mean, I had a job when I was 14 and I never stopped. Like, I don't know how all these kids nowadays aren't going to work, but
yeah, I don't either. It amazes me. I mean, I'm fortunate, right? Because my kids and their spouses, they're all very hard workers. And I don't see them not wanting to work. I mean, they're always looking for something extra to do, as a matter of fact. They're always taking on more than they probably should. But speaking as a dad, but I don't get this current thought process behind not working or even how they're surviving.
Yeah. So you're right. It's crazy. There's always going to be something new happening in recruitment. You're dealing with people and the market and all the crazy things that come into play. So yeah, it's always a constant, like, you're on your toes constantly in recruitment because you never know what's going to happen next.
There's always a curveball. And I'm actually linked in with a lot of with a handful of independent recruiters, right? So, you know, I see what they post about all the time, and, you know, Joe Langley and a couple of those guys there that have some very interesting stories to tell when they post. So that's pretty amazing. So Dr. 𝗪𝗓𝗂, how are things in Portugal? And you know, you just started a new program, which is amazing, right? And I know you've got a few direct clients now.
Oh yeah, actually we just finished up a big program that was very, very near and dear to my heart. I called it the Radical Healing Journey. Go figure. And it's really about that healing against all odds and overcoming the hidden barriers that are keeping you sick. And they're the very same barriers that are keeping people stuck in their success, their wealth, unhappy in their relationships, you know. So it's been a beautiful journey for the participants in it. And yes, I just literally opened up a couple of slots for taking one-to-one clients, because I hadn't done that in years, because I was so focused on wanting to help as many people as possible. So the clients that I'm working with now are like other doctors, what I like to call healthpreneurs. Doctors don't like to think of themselves that way, right? We're doctors, right? But really, unless you're employed by a hospital, right, you need to be a healthpreneur, and we're not trained that way. So they have a special place in my heart, working with other entrepreneurs, leaders. So really, again, it's indirectly changing as many lives as possible, knowing that if I influence one person, this goes back to what Tabitha was saying, you have no idea how many people they're going to influence. So the people I'm taking on right now are those people who are in a place to influence multiple, like, you know, hundreds, even thousands of people. So those are the ones that I'm opening up my doors to who are really looking, you know, how to become their highest potential, their highest success, make the biggest impact, and enjoy life too. Because we don't have to be the wounded healers. We don't have to be, you know, the martyr syndrome where, you know, we help everyone else and we have to suffer for some reason, right? So that is definitely one of my special passions. So
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I'm speaking from experience because I've been working with you now for quite a while. Tab, I know you got to get going soon because you've got other commitments, and we're having people in and out over the course of the next couple of hours. So I want to thank you so much for joining us and bringing us your story. It truly is amazing. You've been an inspiration to me over the years, and I value your friendship very much, and look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Oh, you're the best. No, likewise. You know how I feel about you. I value you so much. I think you're such a wonderful person. And to be doing this, I know, helping so many people by just helping one, you know, and that's exactly, it was so funny, Dr. Irene, behind the scenes in the private chat, I was literally starting to type this out because you were saying you were shifting gears a little bit. And I'm like thinking, man, when you can deeply help one person, that affects them more than you might ever even know. I mean, that ripples out, and you might not know that either, but that's how you influence the masses, is by starting with one. And I would say that both of you have influenced me in a positive way over the years. And I'm so grateful for that. And I get to keep paying that forward to other people. And so thank you for having me today. I really hope that it raised awareness on multiple fronts, supporting both MS and maybe getting people to schedule a colonoscopy. Yep. But yeah, I appreciate both of you. Good luck with the rest of your event, and we'll chat soon.
All right, take care.
It's been an honor, Tabitha. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right,
bye.
Bye.
That was amazing. I love her. Yeah. I mean, she is just amazing. I meant for her to. I'm going to have her message Lisa, my wife, because I'm trying to get her colonoscopy done. So I'm going to have to get your colonoscopy done.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have more people coming on. Rachel Beck's going to be here in a little bit.
Awesome.
Kylie Hauk, who I want you to meet, and I think you should engage with her. Her specialty is all about. She's the diet shred coach. That's kind of her thing. I forgot who introduced us. Another clinician said, "Hey, you should talk to Kylie, and you know, she could use some exposure. She's doing some really cool stuff." And she's all centered around mindful eating. So I think that's going to be an interesting conversation. And then Lisa Goldenthal is going to be here later.
Love Lisa.
Yeah, you know Lisa. And Gregory Austin, old friend of mine from one of the first connections I had on LinkedIn way back when, from the pharmaceutical industry. So he's got a lot of good knowledge as far as that's concerned. And of course, one of my favorites, Chef Jill Sullivan, is going to be on around noontime. So hopefully, if she's listening, Jill, I hope you're going to bring lunch. or show us some lunch. And then Adam Marks and Stephanie Malnick are going to be here as well. So people are going to be stopping in and out. And I just want to thank you for co-hosting with me. At some point, one of us is going to have to go have a bio break so we can kind of keep the flow going.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
My goal is to make sure this coffee lasts the entire 4 hours, so I don't have to worry about a bio break. But that's one of the.
You know what? Be healthy. Take a bio break.
Yeah, you know what?
It's challenging. It's and for our listeners who are on, it's and I know you and I share this that we're really introverts at like physiologically, so we can come on here and bring our best, bring the energy, and it really takes a lot out. So it's very important for you to go take your.
No, I get it.
Give your bladder a rest and give your energy a rest, right?
Yeah, I get it.
So,
and speaking of the man, the myth, and the legend, Adam Marks jumps in.
Woohoo!
Hey, Adam, how are you?
Hey, Adam.
So, for those of you who don't know this young man, Adam Marks is known as the guy with the orange glasses, and he is the 0 to 1 networker. If you want to have your organization really excel at networking, especially if you've got a good sales organization, or if you want to build your LinkedIn presence, right, or any social media presence for that matter, X, Instagram, X or Twitter, depending on what you're stuck with.
Remember when it was Twitter?
Yeah, exactly. Adam Marks is the guy to follow and engage with. He knows how to build networks. Recently coming off a speaking gig at SXSW, which I thought was very cool. And you had another speaking gig recently that you came off of that you were talking about. So Adam, I want to thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah,
Joining us, I should say.
I'm happy that I could jump in. I'm looking around to make sure that our office is also the guest room. So I'm like, did I leave anything out? I don't know. Well, I was really, really humbled and excited to be able to do the mentorship at South by Southwest for their startup track. And hey, Tab. And so, I was really, really happy to be able to speak to a bunch of founders on networking, partnerships, relationship building. What was so interesting was, South by Southwest is a huge kind of, multi-layered kind of festival. So there's film, there's music, tech and startups, civics. And one of the things that I saw is like an underlying theme, regardless of whether it was a film meetup or a civics meetup or a tech meetup, is the focus on relationship building, long-term network cultivation, and particularly as a function not of replacing sales and marketing, which are crucial to any business growth, but in addition to. And a lot of times these things not only get kind of mushed together, but it's kind of like trying to build your organization with like 2 of the 3 things, in this context that are very necessary, but not 3 of the 3 things that can help supercharge it. And they're really the best sales people who I know. They know when to turn the sales off. And I actually wrote a post about this yesterday. The first person I met at South by Southwest, who was, a new person who I met, not somebody I knew who happened to be going. She and I met like in the registration line, like Thursday night after I had gotten off the plane, got to the hotel, did all the hotel stuff, and like just standing talking. And we hung out all throughout the time that we were there. We had dinner a couple of nights, and now this is a new person who's a wonderful part of my network. And it only happened standing in line, and not like, oh, hey, let me sell you something. More like, hey, this is my first time. You've been here before. Where's good to eat around here? Something super, super simple like that. And so the speaking thing next week, which is really exciting, is at Emory University, they have something called the Hatchery, which is kind of their kind of in-house incubator. A lot of schools are doing that now. Georgia Tech has one that's really well known called ATDC, and I'm sure a lot of universities probably have their own respective portions. And so I'm going to do speaking. I'm the featured speaker for their kind of cohort graduation ceremony, which is really exciting to be able to talk to a lot of not just startup founders, but students as well. And again, to focus on this kind of mentality of building networks, building relationships. Look around at the people in the cohort. They may be your target, customer base. They may not be your target customer base, but especially within the context of education, higher education, being able to look at the communities that we are already in as a way of looking for opportunities to build relationships. And I think a lot of times, especially once we get into business and entrepreneurship, it can be a little difficult to see that, because we get kind of into this mindset of, is this conversation worth it? What's the value of this dialogue? And is it going to add to my bottom line, my ROI? When in reality, it's just have lots of conversations. You're already in that community, whether it's like, what do you do when you're not in class? What do you do when you're not building your company? Maybe you go to the theater or the theater group or the baseball games or whatever it is. These are all valid communities filled with lots of people where lots of interesting conversations can happen. And when we just recognize the value of those dialogues as, this may lead to something. It could possibly lead to something we don't really know. Mm-hmm. Really interesting things start to happen. So that's kind of what's going to underpin next week's kind of small social dinner. So it's very exciting. And in any event, we're not here to talk about my ridiculous.
No, we are. Yeah, no, absolutely we are, because I think it's important. So you read a lot of the same things. I think that's why we get along so well, because so many people today, especially on LinkedIn, right? They form mm-hmm. relationships because there's something that they want, right? Either they're trying to sell you something, and I've only recently, because I'm at my 30,000 connection limit, I'm starting to mm-hmm. weed out people, but I can't begin to tell you how many direct messages I get every day from someone saying, "Love your background. LinkedIn tells me that I should connect with you. By the way, buy this." You know what I mean? And I'm sorry, you get deleted immediately, because like you, Adam, I think you have to approach relationships, and I've got a lot of connections and a lot of relationships on LinkedIn. At least the people that I'm closest with, none of those are transactional. All of those are relationships, and we help each other out, right? Krista, even with you, Adam, Dr. Irene, ours is kind of started out as kind of transactional, because you helped me, but now we reciprocate, and we've actually built a really good relationship off of that. But everyone that I deal with, right? It's more of you never know what impact you're going to have on them and what impact they will have on you. And that's why I love doing Coffee with Bob, right? It's not even this telethon that we're doing. And I'm hoping that this is the first telethon ever broadcast on LinkedIn, and the LinkedIn gods take notice and build us up so that we get seen by more people. But even for this, it is for MS. It is to help raise money for MS. But I wanted to talk about Embreem's book and her son's book, right? I wanted to talk about mm-hmm. the things that Tabitha is doing and the impact that she has. I want to talk about, what Dr. Irene is doing and all the amazing things that she's doing to help so many different people, and all the amazing work that you're doing, Adam. I think that's important, right? Because Yeah, it's about MS and it's about raising money. Yeah, I get that, but it's also about you guys too, and the things that you can do. And who knows what that impact is going to have on any number of people who are watching now.
I mean, I think that that's ultimately like the big takeaway is that like we don't really know how relationships are going to grow and evolve. And you know, that's when I talk about getting away from the transactional component, like that's a big portion of it. I think especially being in startups a lot of the time there's maybe a misperception, and this may just have to do with colloquialisms that like when I say non-transactional, what I'm saying is, oh, it's not going to have any um, benefit to your bottom line, or you're trying to raise a round, or whatever it might be. And that's not true. In the startup world, when I hear oh, we know how to, we raised X amount of money, let's say $1 million for a round, whatever. We know how to network. No, you know how to fundraise, which is absolutely critical. But the problem is that fundraising is a subset of networking. And so there's a tendency, and I understand this, to raise a round, and that's the milestone. Then you go heads down on your product, and then I don't hear from you for X amount of months. Whether I'm the investor or not, are you in the community? Are you going out and supporting other people when it's not about you, when it's not your pitch competition? That to me is what's so easy, because you don't want to have a dynamic where every time you send an email, it's someone on the other end saying, oh, they're running out of money, right?
Yeah.
That's not what you want. And then like when we talk about like enterprise companies, I spend a lot of time talking to enterprise companies saying like, look, most times once you reach like 5-10 employees, it's not really about the introductions necessarily, because you've kind of gotten to that level where you have a lot of introductions already. But it is about how to scale and maintain relationships, because as you grow a company, the responsibilities of like the top executive team, their time goes down because their responsibilities are growing. They're trying to grow a company, trying to grow hopefully a very positive employee culture. And so a lot of times that maintenance, long-term cultivation of relationships basically gets offloaded to the sales and marketing team. And the problem with that is that those people, they already have a job. Okay, so now we're basically giving them more work and saying, oh, and also do this, which is not the same kind of job that they were initially hired for. And the really best way to scale dialogues and scale relationships within the context of a corporate environment is to let people be people, and basically help everybody in the organization win where they win. And what I mean by that is like, the graphic design people are going to be able to have the most passionate, knowledgeable conversations about graphic design, or the tech people about the tech product or the tech side. And sometimes those people are either not perceived as being like good salespeople or good networkers, or they may feel that they're a little bit more introverted. And give those people the same tools that you give your sales and marketing team. And this is kind of what I mean when I like what you were saying, like you don't know. You may have a sales rock star in your graphic design person, or in your tech person, or in whoever it might be in your organization. Give your entire organization the set of tools and the confidence to say, oh, I can go out and talk to people, because the really best networks happen when we do things like this. When you show up for something that's not about you, then it's a lot easier to talk about. We talk about authenticity. Like, it's so easy to walk around and say, I'm an ally for this, right? And then you pin it on your lapel, and I'm an ally for, and then fill in the blank for women, for diversity, blah, 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 blah. But it's like a put up or shut up kind of deal. And certainly in tech, we saw this, unfortunately, like after COVID, the whole like more women in tech, more diversity in tech, more, like the numbers dropped off after it stopped being like, sexy and chic to talk about how, hey, we need more women in the boardroom. We need more women VCs. We need to be funding more of these companies. And so it's to that point that you were making, Bob, that like building dialogues and relationships, it can come from a potentially initially transactional relationship like you had, and then you grow it. And like any relationship, like things just grow. Oh, there's a car going off. Things just grow kind of organically, you know? And so anyway, I'd love to hear, Irene, you and I haven't had the occasion to speak for, boy, it seems like forever now. But
Forever.
I'd love to hear.
Yep.
I know. Life has been like this, up and down.
Well, I'll tell you what, you guys kibitz. I'll be right back.
Absolutely.
Phenomenal.
Absolutely. So I loved everything that you were saying, Adam. And, you know, instead of being what's in it for me, I love the phrase of have hope, help one person every day. And, you know, and that's not help one person every day, only those people that have something to offer you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It might be somebody, you know, I'm in a foreign country, you know, that's absolutely lovely. I don't speak the language. And yet, you know, if somebody stops me, and they do, you know, to ask for directions, I do my best. Right. I'll be like, okay, let me get my phone out, get Google Maps here, you know, that kind of thing. And so it could be something really small like that, or it could be like bigger, like as in, you know, how can I support you? Right. You're going through a tough time.
I think so much of that is, you know, I'll speak personally, and I'm not going to get too deeply into this, but it does bring up like a really good example with being Jewish, with all the rising spates of anti-Semitism lately. And Bob and I have talked about this. You know, I'm not going to delve into the very complex political implications of whatever. That's not my purview. But I will say that, like, when you see it online, and when I've experienced it online, part of what helps that feeling of hope, because it can get kind of dire emotionally, is to have friends and people in my network who, you know, who are not Jewish or not super knowledgeable about the experience, and have the wherewithal to send a text message and say, hey, listen, I don't really understand this situation. I don't really understand the experience because I haven't lived the experience. Could you explain? Like, I just want you to know I'm here. I'm here to support you. We don't need to delve into the political details or whatever. Could you help me understand how you're feeling? And just so you know that there's someone out here that, like, is in your network, and, like, I care about your well-being. Like, it doesn't need to go deeper than that. I have more respect for people who just say, hey, listen, I'm just not familiar with this. I just don't know enough about this experience, than people who presume to know because of things that we may have seen on social media, which, you know, we all get dictated to by our particular algorithms. And so that it can be as simple as one person saying to another person, hey, listen, I care about your well-being. Like, we don't need to get, you know, into the mush and the milieu of, like, what should be and what shouldn't be. And, like, in the end, certainly I'm not in politics. Okay. I don't have any real political power beyond anybody else, you know, like at the ground level. And so I think that when we talk about building relationships, sometimes there's this need to hear from other people in our network from a human level. Hey, listen, I recognize it's a tough time, and this seems like something that might be affecting you. And I just want you to know that I'm here. And so that's something that I try and do for, like, for women, for, diversity, for people who may be experiencing other sorts of personal experiences that I don't need to understand them on a super personal level in order to understand them intellectually, and say, this is important to reach out to this person and just tell them that there are good people in the world. Because I think sometimes you know, there's no good news. Like the news doesn't pick up like super warm, fuzzy stuff. So you
No, it
need to
doesn't.
have
Yeah, that doesn't
people in your
sell.
net. I mean, however somebody feels, wherever on the spectrum they sit, like news is always bad, right? But there are still like a lot of really good people in the world, and I think that part of the reason I got into networking and relationship building is because like there are so many really beneficial and mutually positive ways that people can connect, and that like that stuff doesn't go viral because it's, you know, it's not sensational, but it really helps in those moments of like, oh, it's been a really bad day, it's been a really bad few months, you know, and Bob knows this, like for me it's been a really bad few months. We had a death in the family, very unexpected personal loss, and like it's just been a really, and like I disappeared like right around, you know, Christmas time, New Year's time, and like having really good friends reach out who probably knew what was going on, but also knew that like the best thing to say was like, hey, I'm around. You know, sometimes that simple phrase, I'm around, that communicates everything you need to communicate in relationships.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
that's the real power of, you know, of good networking, as you were saying before too. In prior to you coming onto the show, Adam, we were talking about something very similar to that, where I said, you know, we've got to be operating. We never know what the other person is going through, right? So we have to be operating from a place of kindness more than anything else, right? And we always have to assume good, not assume the negative. We had one of the listeners post that you know, she's going through, so he or she is going through some very physical types of unseen physical types of issues. So and gets weird people looking at her when she gets the pre-board on a plane, right? Because they think they're trying to cheat the system. Or when you see someone who pulls into a handicap spot and actually gets out of the car and walks, right? What's your first assumption? Your first assumption generally is that person shouldn't be using that handicap sticker, right? But maybe they have a hidden disease like MS as an example, right? And they can't walk any further than or carry any groceries further than where they get to park in the handicap zone. So rather than assume the worst of people, you know, I think we'd be much better off as humans to, let me not necessarily assume the best, but don't assume the worst, right? And to reach out and act out in kindness all the time.
I connect to that so much, you know, and I'll keep things pretty anonymous here. I have a close friend who had she had back surgery when we were in college and school, actually much younger, but by the time we got to college, so she has a rod in her back, you know, it was a scoliosis surgery. And so as a portion of like walking around campus, she had like a special pass to, you know, park in certain places and whatever. Now, like looking at her walking, you wouldn't know, right? But there is a medical reason that she can't carry heavy books, you know, pre-med textbooks, whatever. And so I was surprised when she said, "Oh yeah, there was a person back in school who made a comment to her face like, you don't actually need that." And it's like, you actually don't know what I have going on in my life. You are presuming purely based on physical appearance, right? You don't even know what sorts of chronic pain somebody may be living with, or just what sorts of other factors there are. I mean, and that's before we get into the like, that's just physical, and not just physical, but that's a physical example. But that's before we get into all kinds of, you know, mental health complications, you know, et cetera. And so, like, it's one of those things where when I look at it was actually a period of growth for me. You know, growing up, I was always taught don't park in a handicap spot because I don't need that. And so I needed to outgrow preconceptions I had when I was in, middle school, high school, because when I would see other cars and someone walking, I made that assumption too. And part of growing up is also being aware and saying, okay, I'm 18, 19, 20 now. Like, be aware that there are other conditions, there are other illnesses. Like, I had to sit down and look at myself and say, oh, right in this moment, I'm part of the problem because I'm making presumptions. And so I can't be making presumptions based solely on what my preconceptions may be of what is handicapped or handicapped accessible. And better to learn that at like 17 than to learn it better to learn it than not learn it. But that example you were mentioning just reminded me of that story. I'd love to hear what Irene's going to say.
Yeah, I think it's well for me, and I have hope, that this younger Gen Alpha generation coming up is going to be that much better than we were, or even I was growing up, right? I mean, I'm the last of the boomers. I'm in the very, very last year of the boomers. And, we were brought up very differently, right? Which is why that it took me almost, it took me almost 10 years to even come out and tell people that I had MS, because I was afraid of the shunning that I would get, right? Or the different treatment that I would get. Right. And I know I see it in my kids. They're actually, the progression of thinking is happening. My kids are Gen Z, I think. No, I forgot the age group. Actually, no, my grandson is the last of the Gen Z, so that means my kids are millennials, and my granddaughter, who was just born 6 months ago, she's Gen Alpha, which is amazing. And Gen Beta is coming up in 10, 15 years. I forgot. That's the next generation that's coming up. But I just know my wife's a 5th grade teacher, right? And their school for the last, I want to say 10 years or so, have been really pushing practicing kindness with the kids. And I think that's amazing. I think that's very much needed in this world. I don't watch the news anymore, only because it's just so depressing how vile people are getting. And at the beginning of the whole conflict in Gaza, I mean, I reached out to you, Adam, because you could see what's happening in our country, right? I think if people were to react with more compassion for others, right? And let's talk about having hope first. Let's talk about having kindness first before becoming reactionary, to what's happening. We're not even understanding what's happening. They're becoming reactionary, right? If we focus on that first, I think we'd all be in a much, much better place. I'm not quite sure we're ever going to get there, at least with my generation. But I mean, those of us who have voices. I mean, if you follow me on LinkedIn, anybody who's watching, and my posts, except for the last few, have all been about this telethon because I want it to be successful. But generally, my posts are about acting within kindness, right? Acting with compassion and treating others with respect and positivity, because I think that's the way to be successful.
Absolutely. I love everything was said, and yes, I popped off for a bio break too. Being
It's
kind.
a 4-hour show.
Being kind to ourselves is of paramount importance, as well as being kind to others. And as you were speaking, Adam, I was, what kept going through my mind is ask questions. Ask questions. Ask questions. In other words, that when you start to ask questions without judgment, just with curiosity, right? It's not like, why did you do that? Right? It's what was behind. right? And then, you know, you get to see a whole different perspective. And one of the fun games that I even taught my sons, and I teach my clients, is always assume best intent, especially in times of crisis. In other words, if there's, you know, conflict, crisis, always assume best intent. So, you know, say we're driving along, you know, a crowded freeway, highway, and, you know, somebody cuts you off, right? You can't exactly ask questions. So I taught my kids and my clients to play a game, like to make up a story. Put yourself in their place and go, oh yeah, you know what? That's just Bob. Sorry, Bob. This that's the name I always used when I said this to my sons. Right? It's like, that's just Bob. He's going through a rough time. His wife is in the hospital and he's rushing to get there because, you know, he's concerned about her, and he just honestly didn't see you in his blind spot. Right? What does that do? It develops like instantaneous compassion and empathy, and puts you in that positive state of openness, right? Even if it's not the case, right? Because guess what? Maybe that person just, you know, was in survival mode, which, you know, maybe he's in Hulk mode and he's just angry at the world and he's taking it out on whoever, right? How broken is he or she to have that happen? But on the other hand, at least for you, it not only helps the other person, it helps you. It helps your health, your mental, emotional, and yes, your physical health, when you stay positive and stay in that hero mode, as I love to call it, rather than going into victim mode. And like, they did that. So it's,
Well,
those are little things that I play with.
Yeah, I mean, I really like that tactic. And I see like Olivia just mentioned that she likes that tactic also. Yeah, I had this the other day. I went to had a busy day. My girlfriend and I went and like we grabbed lunch at some fast food spot. You know, it was Chick-fil-A or something. And so anyway, it was like late in the day. It was maybe 3 or 4 o'clock. And the person was a young girl, probably 17, 18, behind the counter. She just was like super, super dour. And like, you know, the order was right, but like the epitome of like, oh, okay, like just totally blunt statements, like, you know, hey, can I get some of this? Can I get some extra sauce? And just like would toss it on the table and walk away. And it struck me as like, wow, you know, it really does change the experience. Like, and in that moment, it would have been so easy to like ask for a manager and then make a complaint and all this kind of stuff. And like, now in some moments, like there is a reason to do that, you know, in escalated moments, but this isn't one of those escalated moments. And all I could think of is, I don't know, maybe she's having a really, really bad day. Maybe she really is that kind of personality, in which case she's not my employee, so it's not my responsibility. But maybe someone's having a truly terrible day. Maybe their day has been like, maybe someone got diagnosed with something, maybe someone passed away, like maybe their like finances are in the toilet. Like there's a zillion good reasons. And all I thought to myself was like, truthfully, honestly, this isn't a big enough reason for me to now wonder if my complaint maybe led to that person getting fired. Right now, they can't pay any of their bills. Like, I just don't need that on my conscience. And it wasn't, and I think this is kind of a jumping off of what Dr. Irene was saying, like putting oneself in someone else's shoes and like recognizing there's a time and place, and it is the harder thing, and frankly the less sensational thing to like suck it up and just let it go, right? But you end up getting more in life doing that. And like, and I'll like use a good example within the context of like networking. And I'm sure that like anybody who's listening to this has had this next experience. I'll bet you both have had this next experience where like you set up a call with someone and then like they drop out or they don't show up, right? And I've had people who drop out like 10 minutes beforehand, 20 minutes into me waiting, or they just don't show up. And so the reason I bring that up is, I've had it happen with the same people 2-3 times. And the conventional wisdom is, oh, well, they're not valuing your time, therefore they're not worth, just cut them loose, right? That's the conventional wisdom. Here's the problem with that conventional wisdom. It's a one-size-fits-all strategy. And what it really should be framed as is you as the individual determine the worth of your time and the worth of a particular potential conversation, right? And so what I always tell potential clients or current clients is, do you want to be on that person's radar? Do you want them in your network? Maybe they are very mercurial. Maybe they are very difficult to tie down. But maybe the benefit of knowing them and having that access to that person, maybe you're weighing that heavier than like annoyances of, oh, they're difficult to schedule calls with. And the only person who's really who really should be making that assessment is you. So whether it makes sense to the people around you or not is almost irrelevant, because you make the assessment of, yeah, this may be a relationship that requires a little bit more massaging, a little bit more kind of, time allotment, and understanding like maybe there's a reason that person is like that. Okay, maybe they're juggling too many things. Maybe they have sick kids. It could be a zillion other things that like we don't know about. And so the one size fits all mentality of, oh, they've missed 3 phone calls. Now I'm not even going to respond to their emails. They're not worth it. That's a pretty harsh reaction to something that doesn't necessarily need a harsh reaction. Each experience is different. And at some point you may say, Jennifer or Mike, it's really hard to tie you down and you're really not reliable. Okay, that may be a conversation you get to, but you don't need to start there, because if the ultimate goal is, gee, I really want Bob in my network, I really want Irene in my network, and like their schedules are just really busy, you're going to set yourself apart from other people who want time with that person by being more flexible, by saying, okay, you know what, it happens. We're all running businesses. We all have stuff going on. Like, I'm around, and that's one of the really hardest things, is to not be reactionary and like to not take it personally, even though it feels personal sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
If you can separate out like the ego from from taking it so personally, it allows you to maintain access to those relationships and cultivate those relationships longer term than if you can't disengage from that. And it's hard, but learning to disengage from that ego is like part of what makes really great relationship builders, like Irene was saying, like understanding there are all kinds of things that you just don't know going on. And the best thing you can do is accept the fact that you don't know everything.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I mean, that's great advice and a great way to put it, Adam. I appreciate that very much. And again, that goes back to, you don't know what that other person is going through, right? So you have to operate from a place of kindness. I'll give you a really good story, and we have Kylie kind of waiting in the green room right now. So I want to bring her on just as soon as I finish this one story, where I'd read an article that had said that, all you have to, it was intended for you and your spouse, right? To hug intentionally, at least once a day for, I forgot the time. I think it was at least 1 minute, and it's going to change your relationship, right? So Lisa and I started practicing that, and it's very cool, because when I come in from work, I've been working later a little bit, so we have very little time to quickly eat a dinner, and then there's always something else going on, right? Or not enough time to sit and relax, but before it's time to crash because you get up at 5 a.m. So it was pretty amazing. So she went back to school, right, and noticed one of the teachers was not looking nice. And she went up to her and said, I'm going to give you a hug. My husband read this article, yada, 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 gave her a hug, and the teacher didn't want to let go. And now what's really cool, I come home, we talk, and she says sometimes she gets a line outside her door of people who want to get hugged that day. So I thought, but again, that goes to the point of, you treat people with kindness first, everything else tends to fade away at that point. So what I want to do now, real quick, I want to bring on, and I'm going to bring on Kylie here to the stage. Hi, Kylie, who's doing her Stairmaster right now, it looks like. I met Kylie through a mutual connection. I think it was Trevor Houston that we met through. I'm not quite sure. I don't remember. And I've been only following her for a short time, and her posts are just amazing, and her advice is incredible for such a young woman. Her knowledge is just amazing. Kylie, how do you pronounce your last name? Hauk?
Yeah, you absolutely got it right. I'm actually astonished that you nailed that. Most people do not get that on the first try.
No, I practiced. So I had mentioned you earlier and was explaining that you're a diet shred coach. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yes, so I'm a diet shedding coach. So I help women eat stress-free and leave the dieting mentality behind. I was a person who struggled deeply with the toxicity of dieting. I dove deep into the quick fixes, the diet fads, and wanted to be the beautiful version of myself because I thought that was being skinny, like everyone is promoted in today's society. And it ended up allowing me to lose the weight. I lost 65 pounds, but I lost myself in the process. I no longer knew who I was, what I liked, what I wanted to do, how I felt. When I was hungry, it was actually a craving of mine, and it really caused me to disconnect with my body and my soul. It's like, as a person, I no longer felt like I was a person. I was human. And I don't want that to be a continued issue in our society for other women. So I help women navigate that mindset from that food obsessed, controlled, can't go enjoy the parties or the birthdays or the events or vacation, and find solace in their life through food freedom and reconnecting with themselves and food.
Now that's and I know you work specifically with women, but I got to say I've learned a couple of things from you already. You had an amazing post yesterday about hopefully I'm gonna do this right, because I actually saved it. I saved the post because I want to try doing it, about putting together not just a normal food diary, right? But you also talked about cataloging the time that you're getting hungry, rating it from 1 to 10, but also the emotion behind it, which I thought was really interesting. Talk about that a little bit, because I thought that was very cool.
Yes, so you are referencing my hunger diary. And that is something that I have personally used in order to tune back into my food desires, my food needs, and what my body is trying to tell me based on energy levels, stress levels, because all of everything we're feeling, everything that's going on in life can contribute to how we eat and our eating habits. And I also, because my mental health was in shambles from the dieting, turn that into a food mood journal. So it's able to help me understand, is there an event that triggered this response for me to crave a comfort food? Was something in my life, or maybe a person, that makes me feel a little on edge, causing me to navigate towards a specific food choice or a food habit? Maybe I overindulged today because I had a hard day at work, or I have a test coming up and I want to make sure that I'm prepared. I just feel like I don't have control in this situation, so I'm going to control food. And every way we function in our day-to-day life can contribute to how we're eating. And if we can take a moment to bring awareness to that, and if we can learn to embrace that without judgment, without guilt, without shame, and just accept what we're feeling and how we want to move forward, and then look at that in a positive light, then we can discover how to eat in a way that is more positive and that connects truly with what we want, so that we're not deprived and then choosing what we want later, but overdoing it because we didn't actually trust ourselves.
And that's what I like about all the content that I've, had the pleasure of reading so far, since we've only been connected for a short time. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on here, because it's so positive, right? It's a different look at how we maybe deal with food. And I know from my perspective, right? And I wish Tabitha was here too, because she's talked about this before too. When we're dealing with things like MS, or in Tabitha's case, colon cancer, supplements and food choices become such an important part of our lives, right? I mean, as much as I like really crappy food, and as much as I like my bourbons, I have to moderate, right? And I have to take a different look at it. Talk about that when people that you work with and they're different, the way food interacts with our lives when we're dealing with things like MS, as an example.
Absolutely. And it all starts, in my opinion, with the labels. Even just now, where that happy label came to the food that you want to indulge in, but you're just not so sure that it's right for you in that moment. Continuing that kind of conversation is what leads us to craving it more and putting it on this pedestal where it's like, oh my gosh, I want this so desperately, but I can't have it, or I shouldn't have it. And then once it becomes like at a point of reach, once we do have access to it, we go either all or nothing. We shame ourselves and are like, no, I shouldn't, I'm not going to, I'm going to resist and stay disciplined and stay strong. Or we go full force and we have 4 burgers from McDonald's than just 1 burger, because this is our last chance, this is our only chance. And it really starts with just like that mind reframe. But with MS specifically, and actually it does feed into a lot of other ways of nutrition, balance is really what's key here. We want to make sure that everyone's nutrition is in a point where there's no restriction, where there are no nutrient deficiencies, where we're not excessively dieting, because it not only hinders our mindset, but it's also hindering a lot of the symptoms that people with MS, for example, are going through, like fatigue. Everyone goes through fatigue, but there can be a different level, a little bit more excessive level for those with MS. And then the mobility issues and the cognitive challenges, those can also be increased when you are looking at a deficiency or a restriction in your diet. And I think that it's really important to make sure that you're including all of the foods that could be labeled as bad foods. Like today, carbs and keto is really big. So carbs are like a big no-no, but carbs aren't seen in a way that there are different kinds of carbs. There are apples and oranges and whole grains and bread, but then there's also potato chips and sweets and bakery desserts. While we could label those, they don't need to be labeled, but can be seen as one provides more nutrients, more benefit to your body, and one can be an enjoyable indulgence every once in a while if that's something you're craving. And I think that it's really important to be able to also consider your energy levels in the process. For example, with those carbs, the carbs that provide you with a lot of nutrients can benefit your energy. They can give you a little of a mood boost. They can get you going. But the ones like a bakery item, you're going to hear or feel a really big sugar high, and then all of a sudden you're going to crash. And it's just seeing how things contribute to your body and how you can navigate that process with a food journal, for example. If you're checking out, okay, this is how I felt before I ate, this is how I felt during the food, this is how I felt after. You can watch how your body responds. And that's actually how I found out that I was lactose intolerant. I had no idea that dairy was no longer my friend. And I started getting really bad digestive issues after I was eating a lot of cheese, yogurt, ice cream, and it was never an issue, but eventually my body just didn't really want to process that as well as it did, maybe not properly as well as it did. And I realized with that journal that I was actually lactose intolerant. I started looking at my symptoms, and it's crazy the way that we understand food can actually change the way that we enter into the day and participate and navigate a daily routine.
Yeah, that is so interesting. I mean, it's funny. I think intuitively we all know that what we bring into our bodies is going to impact us, right? In some way, shape, or form, whether it's going to be negatively or it's going to, it's going to break down some things from a cellular level, whatever the case is. I think we all intuitively know that. We just don't know how to act upon it and how to change that. And that's what I like about a lot of the things that you talk about on LinkedIn, at least. And just so you know, we are broadcasting to LinkedIn, YouTube, and X right now. And I can't see the responses from, I can see how many people are on YouTube, which is a lot. I can't see how many people are on X or see the responses from X, but we are getting some questions from LinkedIn that I want to share with you. Yeah, which is cool. So Olivia is asking, what is your favorite mood booster?
Ooh, so I am actually
Your favorite
my
food?
my favorite food mood booster is honestly my breakfast oatmeal oats. So, or oatmeal oats, that was pretty repetitive. Oatmeal baked oats. So I love making my own pastry at home, and I do it with bananas instead of eggs. And I like to throw in some almond milk, my oats, maple syrup, peanut butter, whatever fruit I'm craving. And it's almost like a different pastry treat every morning. Sometimes it tastes like a cobbler, and I'll do it with peaches. And oh my gosh, my mouth is already starting to water for it. But it highlights my day because I'm taking care of myself in regards to my cravings. I almost always wake up with a sweet tooth because I love pancakes and waffles. Anything that I can put syrup on is usually a go-to for me. But it also gives me that fiber that I need to start my day off right. It gives me protein with the oats and peanut butter. And it also has that nutrient-dense food like a fruit or a vegetable could offer. And it keeps me satiated also throughout my entire morning. I'm not thinking about food before lunch and just wondering, oh my gosh, when is the clock going to turn? And that's a really big issue when I was dieting because I wasn't eating to fulfillment. I was eating the bare minimum or pushing breakfast back because I was in an intermittent fast and I wasn't supposed to eat until 11. So my oatmeal baked oats, which you can find on Pinterest or honestly probably anywhere on Google, they have so many recipes. Highly recommend.
Yeah, oh, that sounds good. Yeah, you know what? You bring up an interesting thing with the intermittent fasting. I do that, but not intentionally, right? I'm a breakfast guy on the weekends. I like to go out to get breakfast, at the local breakfast place, after church or after whatever we're doing in that morning. But generally Monday through Fridays, I don't eat breakfast or I don't eat lunch. But what I'm finding is that when I come home, I mow. Right. I mean, I'll eat a lot of dinner. And my wife happens to be a really good cook, so that doesn't help because then I'm even more hungry. So I'm trying to think of ways because when it comes time for breakfast in the morning, I don't feel like eating. I'm a cup of coffee guy, and that's fine. And then lunch comes around. I'm usually working through lunch and I'm not actually hungry and I don't want to eat just to eat. So what's a good way around something like that? Or what would you suggest to people who were like that? I think a lot of people are like that, actually.
Yes, I think a lot of people are like that. And when it comes to routine, it's probably something that you've been doing for a really long time, that you've been not interested in breakfast, maybe going and working through lunch. It really has to do with you checking in with yourself and you taking the time to check in with yourself. Right now, I think it's completely understandable that you don't feel hungry, that you're not sure that you would even be hungry, but allowing yourself the opportunity to see, to verify that even a little snack is not something that would benefit you in that moment, I think is really important, just to bring awareness to not every moment, but every possibility while you're trying to tune in with your body. Because if you're in home and you're like ravenous, you were hungry at some point during that period between not eating in the morning and getting home, and you're just not really sure when that's happening. And I find a lot of the time it is because when we're working, we are so entranced in whatever it is we're doing. We're so focused. We feel like things are flowing. We have a hard time walking away or stepping away from them. But even in a 10 or 15-minute break, if we can take a moment just to step away from the computer, it doesn't have to be a specific time, like lunch is at 12, like you can work with your body. You can figure out when your lunch is, when your body is telling you it's time to have a snack. And if you are able to step away, maybe even when you go to the bathroom, and just take an additional 5 minutes to measure yourself on a hunger scale, say 5 is the center, 10 is your I am ravenous, that's when you're getting home for dinner, and 10 is your ravenous, that's when I'm getting home for dinner, and 1 is I'm not really hungry, like I could probably be good for a while. Then measuring that, how close are you towards your ravenous? If you're at like getting at an 8, like you're pretty hungry, and maybe it's time for a little snack. It's time for something that's gonna nurture your body and help you make it to dinner, because sometimes it seems like with your family, you're really wanting that bond with your wife. You're really wanting that time with her, so you don't want to ruin the opportunity for dinner. So just having something that's small and being able to check in and see, did this help? Was I actually hungry? Did I enjoy this? Those will be really important questions.
Yeah, that's and that's why I saved that post that you just did recently with the whole diary gig. I'm definitely going to start doing that. So and I want to see how it works. It's interesting that way. So how did you actually get into doing this, or what made you want to get into doing this for other people?
Oh my gosh, I love this question. So I was a social worker for about 5 years. I got my master's degree in social work with a clinical focus, and I dove right into counseling. And I loved it. It was absolutely my passion. I worked in addiction, in mental health, and foster care, and domestic violence and sexual assault. I've always been a helper. Always filled my soul to be doing something where I could see it made a difference for someone else. And I got burnt out because I wasn't taking care of myself and my body. And at 198 pounds was when I entered into diet cycle. And that was during my last job, where I was working at a crisis center. And because my body wasn't being nurtured and my mind wasn't being nurtured, I couldn't sustain my passion of that job, and I quickly got burnt out and had to leave. And when I left that position is actually when I took time to take a look at what I was doing, how I was treating my body, how I was handling my life, how I was handling stress. And that was actually when I chose to navigate away from dieting and try to find a more mindful way of life and a way of eating, and enjoying my ability to do all of the things that I want to do. I was taking a lot of things for granted, and I didn't want to do that anymore. So when I left the job, started reclaiming my life, I was looking at a way to enjoy fitness, because I was an excessive runner. I wanted to burn all of the calories I could to earn food and feel like I could indulge in the things that I wanted. So I started in the gym by reclaiming my enjoyment for fitness and using it as a way of self-care rather than as a punishment. And while I was doing that, I found other jobs to kind of keep my house to pay my bills, but like just trying to like stay afloat, but also not hinder my mind and my body as I was still rebuilding myself. And I was with my partner. We ended up getting a job opportunity in Washington. So we moved across the country from Kentucky to Washington. And with that big environmental change, I decided that this is a time to change my life. I have the ability to make a difference, and I miss counting, but I'm not sure that that was the right environment for me. So how can I use that to help other people? How can I use my background to benefit others, but in a way that I'm passionate about and that I can talk about as someone who's been there and made the transformation? And I found coaching and wellness coaching, holistic coaching was something that really spoke to me because it's about your whole body. It's about looking past just your nutrition plan or your exercise plan and tuning into what makes you you and how I can help you reframe your relationship with yourself and with food. And in that, I was like, I don't want to talk about diets, but I want to talk about how diet culture sucks and how you can move away from that and still sustain your weight loss or still reach your goals if you have body specific goals, because 80 to 90% of dieters regain their weight that they lost, or at least most of it, within 3 to 5 years. And I've sustained my 65-pound weight loss for 3 years eating mindfully. And I want to promote that. So I was like, okay, counseling, coaching, diet shedding coach. There we go.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think for those of you that are on LinkedIn or listening on Twitter, you need to, or even YouTube, jump on LinkedIn to find Kylie and connect and engage with her. She's offering up a wealth of wisdom in her post, which is amazing. And I think actually, Kylie, you and Dr. Irene need to hook up as well, because I think you guys align in a very good way in your approach to helping counsel people, to helping them get better, right? So Kylie, you weren't on when we did this, but when I first introduced Dr. Irene in our first hour, she and I have been connected for a few years now, and she actually has helped me with my MS where medication couldn't help, and it was through her coaching. And I've been looking at your advice, and I'm gonna start following that as well too, and we'll see if that even adds to it even more. But that's why I think you guys align very well that way. So I think that ugh, can't talk today. That's going to be pretty amazing. That's one I've noticed. That's a new thing too. With my MS, I was talking to my neurologist about my ability to put words together, and they said, "Well, yeah, that's going to happen." So forgive me when that happens, and feel free, Dr. Irene, to interrupt me to pick up the slack.
You're doing awesome. You're doing awesome. My apologies, Kylie, that I wasn't able to hear. Being in the south of Portugal right now is like, well, it's lovely here. Sometimes the internet. So I actually had to I got booted off my internet, had to restart my computer, everything. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it's all good. Yes, absolutely, Kylie. Let's connect and chat more. You have an amazing story, and it's so important that we all get our messages out there and help the people who need the help, which is so many people.
Yeah, and that's kind of my main goal of all the Coffee with Bob that I do. It's to help others get the exposure they need so they can get their messages out there, so they can help. I mean, my goal with LinkedIn has always been, if I can just touch one person or help one person, then my goal is met for that day. I mean, I'm not trying to sell my services or coach or anything like that. Really, I'm just trying to make a positive impact, which is why even though we're doing this for MS, we're trying to raise funds and awareness of MS. I still want this to be about Kylie. I still want this to be about Dr. Irene. I want this to be about you guys and the benefits that you bring to the world, right? And that you bring to our networks. I think that's really important. So I'm very happy to have you guys on.
Thank you so much. No, this has been such a treat, and it really shows in everything that you post that you are such a helper, that you do truly want to not only provide information and resources to everyone that also connects with you on the MS level, but you have an interest in so many other perspectives because you know the value that can be had in opening your mind and seeing new ways and new opportunities, just like you did with Dr. Irene, the ability to connect with her and find a different outlet that wasn't the medication. That is a beautiful story. In our society today, medication is such a focus on healing so many different illnesses and diseases and diagnoses. And I don't think that they're scared to open their mind to other possibilities, to more natural possibilities, because they don't know what that's like and they don't know if they can trust it, because the medical profession is so gung-ho about these medications, and of course they have their place and they can be so beneficial, but you welcomed the unknown and the fear, and you took charge of life. You knew that this was not something you wanted to settle for. And I think that is so empowering and powerful. I wanted to use both those words, so I made a new word, but it is so empowering. And I really appreciate you taking notice in what I'm doing as well, because I do feel that I have another option for people who are stuck in a way that has been so heavily presented in our society, just like medication was for you. And I'm very excited to see how not many lives I can change, but how many people can find change in their own lives just because of the information that I'm providing.
Yeah.
And I feel like we really connect with that.
I'm gonna bring on Rachel Beck has just joined us, so a lot of people on LinkedIn know who Rachel is, and Rachel and I have been connected for a long time. Rachel, you really need to get to know Kylie. I know you already know Dr. Irene, so that's good, but you really need to get to know Kylie. She's amazing.
Happy to get to know you, Kylie. How are you?
I'm doing so well. Thanks so much. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm glad you're able to make it in. We've been kind of texting back and forth, having a couple technical difficulties out there in Alabama. But I'm glad you can join us, Rachel. I really appreciate it. Rachel and I have been connected for a while.
Years.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know Rachel, she is just amazing. Her sole purpose in life is to help others grow and to spread positivity throughout LinkedIn and other areas as well. She's also a best-selling author with an amazing story that hopefully we'll talk about. And so if you're not connected with or engaging with or following Rachel, or even Kylie or Dr. Irene as well too, you guys need to. I think we need to do this. And for those of you out there that have been watching, I'm watching YouTube jump up, continue to grow, which is awesome. I wish I could see what's going on with X. I really do have friends that are male. So I'm going to bring Adam back.
Yes.
I need more coffee.
And Gregory Austin's going to be joining us a little bit later, and a bunch of my other. I tried to get Michael Ray on, but he's got something going on with his daughter, so he wasn't able to join, and a couple of other people. So, but thank you guys all for being here. I mean, this is just a cause that's near and dear to my heart. Last year, I was able to raise about $1,600, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for an individual, donating to an entire cause for MS, it was a lot. And so my goal this year is still $1,500. I'm nowhere near it, but I'm hoping this first ever LinkedIn telethon is going to help that out. But and I thank you guys for supporting me in this cause. It means so much to me. We've been, right before you got on, I think, Kylie, you were listening in when we were talking about not knowing what the other person's going through and how MS is an invisible, right, disease to a large extent, right? There are those extreme cases where people end up in wheelchairs or end up in leg braces or, eventually death because of the disease. But for the most part, for most people, it's pretty invisible. I mean, you can't see the pain that they're waking up with, the achiness in the joints, or the numbness that they may feel, right? Or whatever is going in at that time, or I call them spike headaches. I get those all the time too. You never see that kind of stuff. So you guys coming out to support, I really do appreciate that. I mean, I love you guys all, and we just had another Lisa G is here too. So I'm gonna pop her into the meeting too. Lisa Goldenthal. Hey Lisa, how are you?
Hey team. Oh my God, I love this crew. I love the message. I've been listening for a lot of the morning. And Adam, as a fellow member of the tribe, I appreciate everything that you shared about what's going on in the world with Jews and how painful that kind of can be from our point of view. And also to the parts that you guys shared about networking and all the spam bots that are in my inbox all the time that don't know the special skills that you guys have been talking about on genuine connections, on real messaging, and really giving to give, not giving to get. And Dr. Irene, I know we're connected, and Rachel and Kylie. Am I saying your name right? I have a huge background in health and wellness, so it's wonderful to be part of this amazing crew.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us. And so I know some of you guys have limited time, so if you need to pop off, please do. Don't worry about it. I know in advance of that I appreciate you all, and know that we all have things to do, and trying to squeeze everything into a 4. And the reason it's a 4-hour telethon is because that's the limit LinkedIn puts on live feeds. So. And to be honest, I was worried that I wasn't going to have enough content to fit into 4 hours. But thankful for these influencers here. You guys are helping me out. So Rachel, I want to circle back to you in just 1 second, right? Because I think Lisa's on Pacific time, and I know she has a small window to be with us. I think, right, Lisa?
I can be here for a half hour. I'm here.
Okay, cool. So I wanted to, so for those of you who don't know Lisa, she is probably the most rocking out dance party queen on LinkedIn. If you've seen her post, you know that she dances and points to all the different tips that she's giving. Tell us a little bit about what you do, Lisa, and why you do it.
Well, I'm a high performance executive coach, and with a huge background in health and wellness, I always see the need for leaders who are focusing on everything else except for themselves to lead themselves first. So self-leadership is something that I'm hugely passionate about, because I feel like for true influence and impact in the world, it all starts with self-leadership. So whether that's your nutrition, your true listening skills, and fitness, I feel like it's the whole package. It's not just for me. I've spent my whole life helping people with health and fitness and weight loss. And I found with my clients that I've worked in that are executives, that there's a gap in communication and active listening, basically emotional intelligence too. So I feel like the so-called soft skills aren't really soft. They're required skills. And I'd love to help people, just like all of you wonderful people here. Everybody is such a giver. I'm just so honored to be in this tribe. I'd love to help people lead themselves better, to lead themselves to success in these disruptive times.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, and your posts and videos are amazing. I enjoy them on a daily basis. Can't
Thanks.
imagine a day that I wouldn't have a chance to grab your post. And I think Lisa and Kylie, I think you guys would make great connections. And I think, you know, like with Dr. Irene, I think your messages and your purposes align very well. So you know, in fact, I think that with the whole group here, I mean, it's no coincidence that I invited people that I think align very well. I mean, it from my perspective, I've gained so many positive things from each one of you, and the connections that we've made have turned into some amazing friendships, right? I mean, Lisa and Kylie, you guys, I'm connected with you through LinkedIn and through posts and engaging on posts and stuff like that. But my connections with Dr. Irene and Adam and Rachel have blossomed into, you know, what I think will be lifelong friendships, right? I mean, we talk to each other, we meet with each other on and off LinkedIn, right? We still haven't had the opportunity to meet face to face physically yet. We always try to plan things out, but our paths never seem to cross. But we're working on that. And I think that's one of the amazing things about LinkedIn, or even about social media for that matter, is that even with social media or some people might say the facade of social media, right? There are opportunities to develop genuine relationships. And I think this group here, and even with 𝗪𝗶𝗰 earlier on, you know, we are examples of that, or even with Tabitha, right? I mean, Tabitha, like I said earlier, Tabitha is my little LinkedIn sister, my little link, because we've developed that kind of relationship over the years where we talk on and offline. So I think that's one of the big benefits. And I think as leaders here, or quote unquote influencers, I don't know if I'm an influencer or you guys consider yourself, I consider you guys to be, that's the kind of message that we need to keep pushing out there. And that's the kind of message that you guys do push out there. And I think that's what attracts me the most and just does my heart so well.
I love what you're putting out there too, Bob. And when I saw this post on MS, I want to say thank you for doing this. I have a dear friend with MS, a former client of mine from when I was doing personal training back in Los Angeles. And I texted her that I was going to do this because I've watched her struggle, and it was fine for 20 years and then it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And she's watching people like Christina Applegate and all the other brave people like yourself. So I want to commend you for putting this wonderful group together and being the example of actual real networking, not just trying to be like, oh, I really like your stuff, I want to connect with you so I can sell you my product. Like, they are missing a step. So I want to really connect with all of you guys here, because I see Rachel and her generosity and all the stuff you're putting out there too. And let's all connect.
Yeah, very good. Awesome. What were you going to say, Adam? I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to double down on what you said and what Lisa just said, that like building real networks. This is kind of one of the reasons why I find myself really trying to get people, whether they're individuals or, you know, corporate teams, just trying to get people in general to understand that, like, when you have, like, building a network is like, it's almost like building financial credit. The best time to do it is when you don't need it. And and it's easy to hear that within the context of money and business and getting a job and having a job. And that's a part of it. You know, like COVID's a great example. You know, no one could have seen COVID coming, but there's a whole other side to it that isn't job related or job oriented, which is about, like, life is hard. Like, this stuff is hard. And having different people in different circles who have different access to maybe different opportunities or different other people within their circles, just having different people who run and create interesting intersections and dialogues. That's like the real power of networking is that focus in terms of like ever building. And it there's a concept, I'm sure we're all in business enough to have heard the concept of economies of scale, which is talked about a lot in startups. And it's basically like how, you know, if you're going to produce like a plastic cup, how many of them do you have to produce in order to make a profit on selling, you know, a 50-cent plastic cup, right? You have to get huge economies of scale and be selling like billions of them. And there's a concept that I've been working with called networks of scale. And what it's really about is when you build your network organically, doing things that don't scale, like having really empathetic, really authentic conversations, one at a time, really showing up for people. What happens is like one day there's a switch that flips and you don't really know when or how it's going to do that. But you end up in a situation where your network is kind of has this momentum and it keeps kind of building on itself, almost like compound interest. Like it just keeps kind of going. And so you can't be everywhere at one time because we're all human and like it's important to take time away and say, I need a break, or I'm just not available that day. But you're still associated. You still get invitations to those things. Like this is a great example. I just happened to be able to do this today. And if I wasn't able to do it, I can see there's still numerous amazing people in my network who are able to do it. And so it creates this really wonderful spider web effect that, you know, that's the reason that I think a lot of people, when they have the aha moment of, oh, I have a real network of amazing people who I can reach out to, who I can ask for help, you know, that there's something magical about saying like, hey, I'm struggling right now, or this is something I really care about. Like you don't have to be struggling. You could just say, this is something I really care about. Is there something, can I count on you to help me? You know, and it doesn't always mean like a post or a reshare or a donation. It could just be like, can I just know that you're in my corner? And like when you have that, it creates this this sense of empowerment, which I think is really I think it's really magnetic in a way.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because that really, if anybody here that follows Rachel, you know that's at the very center of her heart. In the way she posts, in the people that she interviews, it's always about someone else besides her. And I think that really is amazing, Rach.
Thank you. Then thank you so much, Bob, for Adam. Hello. Lisa. Hello. Irene. Love you. I wanted to talk about, you know, you're addressing, because I stand with MS and I'm behind them 1000%. I think for the people I know in my life who have it, I battled a disease for 20 years that people couldn't see. I battled endometriosis. And you come across people saying, well, I can't see your disease, right? I dealt with that the entire, I can't see it, therefore it doesn't exist. And that is a message that I think we need to get across. There are many diseases that people can't see. And I think we need way more compassion, way more empathy for the MS community. It's really, really important to me. And to not make assumptions, you know, to not just because we look a certain way, people might not have any idea what's going on with that. So that's, Bob, why I wanted to jump on today, is to get that message out.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that you're here, because I know you've got a huge following. All right, so now we've got like a little Brady Bunch thing going on. So I'm going to see if I can add a center square here. Chef Jill Sullivan just popped in. I don't know if she comes in at the bottom. But Chef Jill.
I love Jill.
Hi, Bob. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Jill. Jill's amazing.
I want to add one
MS,
thing today.
She got her MS support shirt on. Did you make that, by the way?
Amazon made it.
Oh, Amazon made it. Okay, I wasn't sure. Well, no, you can make shirts on Amazon. You can make shirts on Amazon, and you can sell them there too.
Oh, okay.
So I thought you designed it. You should
I'm
have
too
just said
busy
yes.
cooking, Bob. I don't have time to make T-shirts.
Well, yeah, you're well, wait, you're a best-selling author, you're a chef, you can make T-shirts. There you go.
I'm a co-author, yes. Thank you so much. I just wanted to say hi to everybody really quick. Thank you so much, Bob. I've always loved supporting you, and you have always been very supportive to me. And a couple of you, we've had phone calls even, you know, it's like we've connected on a deeper level, and that's what LinkedIn is all about. And when I first started LinkedIn, you know, you have 0 people that are following you and you try to connect with people. That's tough. And I think I have 47,000 anyway, followers, and which is, you know, fairly good.
Yeah.
And I'm just so happy to have those, just because it gives you a broader range to share kindness and to change the world. And that's the only reason that we do this.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes from my heart, sincerity.
Yeah, no, I know it is, and we've known each other for a few years now, and we've communicated online and offline as well, and I'm just so grateful for our friendship, and so blessed by it as well too, with all of you here. And another person that I'm very grateful for, who's stopping and who's only got a short amount of time, so I want to bring her on, 𝗠𝗦 𝗪𝗶𝗶. Hey, Stephanie, how are you?
Hi,
She's
how
in-
are you guys?
She's in
How are you?
transit.
Very, very well. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you taking the time to join us. Real quick, I know you're in the middle of. Why don't you tell everybody what you're in the middle of, and that's why you're in the car.
Well, we're in the middle of a merger and acquisition right now, and it's in different locations. And so I'm more so than traveling, I am dealing with a bunch of different time zones. And so I'm trying to not run my team too insanely wild.
So, and that's amazing. And give everybody a little bit of background, because I'm not sure if Rachel or Dr. Irene or Jill or Adam or Lisa are connected with you the same way that I am. If they're not, you guys should. Why don't you give a little bit of background, Steph, about what you do or what you guys are working on?
Sure, absolutely. So I just recently transitioned from SME to CharterX. CharterX is a consulting firm that does performance coaching, that does crisis expertise around the world, and then also does business consulting. So we operate in these kind of 3 lines of business globally, with clients who are already performing very, very well, but maybe want something, you know, new or different, maybe a new emerging market. Maybe they're having issues around talent or talent strategy. Maybe they've gotten themselves into a bit of a bind with some significant issues around crisis. And most of the crises that we deal with, because I get this a lot, they're like, oh, like COVID? No, more like, you know, financial crisis, more like, you know, something that you maybe necessarily wouldn't want the whole entire world to know. Maybe there was a better opportunity for you to work it out privately, like most people are able to do, without so much press or so much media around you. So I do this globally. We've had amazing clients all around the world, from, you know, professional athletes and celebrities, all the way to high net worth individuals, CEOs, executives, etc.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why I invited Stephanie to see if she wanted to come on to the show today is because her content is just simply amazing. And again, like the rest of you guys that are on here now, it really is very positive, and it's all about, you know, approaching things on a very positive kindness type of front. And you know, I think that's important, especially in these days, and especially for people who are dealing with MS, right? Because again, you know, I know I keep repeating this, but it's been 2.5 hours already, two and 3/4 hours, and I've forgotten what I said 2 hours ago. But it is really a silent type of disease. Most people don't know what's going on. Most people don't even know that you have it half the time. And I think it's important that we all interact with each other and form relationships that are positive and are encouraging others to continue to grow, right? Or noticing, or having that empathy to notice that they're going through something. And I think all of you in this right now feel that and notice that, especially Rachel. I know Rachel for sure because that's how she operates 100%. Dr. Irene, I know that for sure of you too, because that's how you guys, that's definitely how you operate. And I know that of Adam and Jill because I deal with them directly. And I've learned that about Lisa, and I've learned that about Stephanie. And I think you guys have messages that just need to be heard by as wide an audience as possible.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. And so I'm going to remind you guys, we're broadcasting to YouTube, we're broadcasting to X, and we're broadcasting to LinkedIn right now too. So, and I'm surprised how many people have been sticking around for the 2 3/4 hours already. So I'm like very happy
Nice.
about that. So Steph, what's one of your biggest takeaways that you think companies in crisis should be really thinking about?
I mean, so here's the thing. I always say this and no one listens ever. I always think that people will, pay an astronomical amount to get out of something, but won't pay pennies on the dollar to actually prevent it. And I think having a really strong team, a team that communicates, a team that you're able to share different philosophies, different methodologies with, people that'll ask the hard questions. I mean, I tell my team all the time, I don't want people to just shake their head and tell me yes. I want people who are going to challenge. I want people that will see my exposure and my blind spots. And so I always try my hardest to go in with an open heart and an open mind of what are you guys looking for? What is the measure of success here? What are you guys hoping to accomplish? And a lot of times I get a very blank look and people will just keep us out of trouble or keep us out of the spotlight. But that really starts with your team, your business practices, your best practices, if you will, how you communicate, how humble your team is, how much empathy you have for others. It's not just this manual. I don't just walk in and pass out, here's my content. It's really, what are you hoping to accomplish, and what's the capacity and the ability of your team? And that's just kind of, I start there and I end there. I walk in, I start with that, and I leave with hopefully some really good thoughts, some really good structure, and some people feeling like they really understand what to do next.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I know your posts really speak to that, which is why I like following you and engaging with you on LinkedIn. And I'm just so blessed that you decided to, I know you got a short amount of time, decided to pop in. That's why I kind of wanted to focus on you a little bit. And I know, Lisa, you have a short amount of time too. So I'm going to actually pose the same question to you because, you're kind of similar to what Stephanie does. You're an executive empowerment coach. What's the one thing you can the one thing that you could give to an individual who's sort of in that crisis mode, at the executive level?
Well, I love everything that Stephanie was sharing about team and the importance of good communication skills. So most people think that they have a team problem or a leadership problem when in fact it's a communication problem. So what I like to teach people is just a simple active listening tool of repeating back what was said. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you said, and then ask for clarity. Is that right? And with all the quiet quitting and disengaged employees these days and business in crisis and disruption, it's just a simple tool. Like, we all react to stress because I don't even know how many of us realize that we've all been in PTSD for 4 years to a certain extent of where's the next shoe going to drop, because we've all been through the most trying time of our entire lifetimes in 2020. And for me, it has continued to be that way. And that's why resilience and grit that Adam mentioned, and we've all realized life's hard. So how can we encourage others to be unstoppable? And I'd say unstoppable starts with you, getting back to my message of self-leadership. It's like, how can you make other people feel heard the way Bob does by doing this event, by empowering all of us through his network. It's just, did I hear you correctly? You know, asking for better questions is always going to give you a better team, a better relationship at home. And resilience and grit is just my favorite topic too, because I have started my podcast in 2020 because it was hard for me, 𝗀𝗏 CEO with Lisa G. So I'd love to talk to all of you guys about the podcast. And I just ask influencers, what are 3 tips to help other people be unstoppable? Because we've all been disrupted, but it's what you do with it that people will remember you for. What kind of leader are you? What kind of influencer are you? And all of the people here, I'm just so honored to be in this group of good leaders.
Thank you. Thank you. What were you going to say, Rach?
I want to address what Lisa was saying. Can you say what you said again about the podcast? You said something very specific. What it takes? Is that what you're asking?
Well, my podcast, 𝗀𝗏 CEO with Lisa G, is really about helping people. We've all been disrupted. So I have the top experts in the world that have come on and given everyone 3 tips on how to be unstoppable, because I could be saying the same thing and Stephanie could be saying the same thing and Adam can be saying the same thing. Dr. Irene, Bob, and Chef, we could all be saying the same thing, but it might land differently with a different audience. So it's really about sharing this message of hope and resilience and grit, and that we can all bounce back better.
So I wanted to answer that, Lisa, because I thought it was a wonderful, wonderful question. How to become unstoppable. Can I answer it now when it applies?
That's my favorite superpower, unstoppable.
I love it. So I'm going to address it when it comes to this platform, because it's a question that Lisa, I get a lot. You know, what happens is, and Jill and I have known each other forever. I love Jill. It is... people are going to hit walls. That's what happens. I get texts about that in DMs all week long. They hit that wall and they make the decision whether or not to keep moving forward.
Nope, I think she froze up. Yeah, she froze up a little bit. Well, while she's getting back online, I'm going to bring Gregory Austin. So again, so people think I have male friends as well as female friends. I'm glad they came on. Greg and I have been connected for a while now. I think Greg was one of my first initial connections way back when, and we've kind of followed each other back and forth. And there, you're back, Rach. Okay. I'm introducing Greg real quick because you were frozen up. But I thought Greg would be a really good addition to this cast of characters we have here. Not only because he's really positive and he's got a wonderful message, but he's got a big pharma background as well too. Yep. So I thought we could talk a little bit about, you know, what's going on in the pharmaceutical industry from the perspective of MS drugs and other types of drugs that deal with people who are dealing with these kind of hidden illnesses. But so before we go on with that, Rach, can go ahead and finish what you were saying.
Thank you, Bob. Gregory, it's very nice to see you, sir. Very nice to see you.
Good to see you as well.
So Lisa, to answer your question, that it's a big question. How do you become unstoppable? You know, it's really truly the givers who succeed on the platform and not the takers. And that is, I see it all the time. You know, that's why, because not enough, like all of us on the screen, you know, we're givers. Gregory, Dr. Irene, Bob, Stephanie, Jill, like all of us, Adam. And that's the second thing. People do not want to spend the time that's necessary. You know, I get it all the time. Rachel, I want to hit 300,000, 400,000, 500,000. And then I'll say, how much time do you spend on the platform? 30 minutes a day. I'm like that. So that's a big mistake people make. Jill will tell you, Irene will tell you, Adam will tell you, Greg, the time that it takes that you need to put onto the platform. You need to be committed to it. And I always ask people, do you want it bad enough? Right? Do you truly, truly want it bad enough? And the third thing, Lisa, to answer your question is, and I tell my network this, it takes a tremendous amount of sacrifice. A tremendous amount. I sacrifice a lot, and I do it because I love my network so much. But are you willing to sacrifice? And some people are, some people aren't willing to do that, and that's okay. Everybody's journey is different. But yeah, I think we need to get across. People sacrifice. They sacrifice for the greater good. They sacrifice for their networks more than I could ever express. So, Lisa, does that answer your question?
Well, I love that you brought up being a giver, and that is the way to succeed. I know that has been a common theme, and it's wonderful because oftentimes for me, I know when I'm anxious and stressed, I'm caught up in my drama, and the easiest way to get out of that for me, other than exercise, which is my thing, is think of somebody else. Like, how can you show up for somebody else? And that can elevate your mood too.
Absolutely. And a big question that I always tell influencers on this platform, and it's really, really important, is who's showing up for you? And that is something to really, that is something that I always tell people to look at. Who's showing up? Who's showing up for you? Jill and I have a deep friendship. So she was doing her sunset photos, which I love. And she's doing that. I would text Jill, I'm like, here's a photo for tomorrow. And like locations all over this country. Because it's so special what Jill was doing. And so that's part of it, what people need to look at.
Yeah, generosity. I think I see that in all of you guys here, and I'm honored to be on this panel.
Yeah, thank you. And Stephanie, that's one of the things that I liked about that I do like about your content, right? It's very educational. It's always educating, the person. You all of you guys give so freely of your content, but from especially like Lisa and Stephanie, where you're very business focused, you give away some really actionable nuggets.
Yeah, I think that, to Rachel and to Lisa's point, I want to hit two topics. First, Rachel, it is giving. It is a sacrifice. And people go, yeah, I want to. I don't think anybody has any idea. Like, I really, I'm going to get on my soapbox for 2 seconds. I'm answering comments at doctor's appointments. I'm in carpool and I'm answering appointments. I'm on comments. I am, when I forget, I truly in my heart feel badly. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot what time zone I'm on or whatever it is. I feel badly. I feel like I've let people down. So this sacrifice and the commitment that it takes is big. The other thing that I'll say about that is when I go dark, I don't want to say so much dark, but in December, I wrote a post. I had 3 deaths within a 4-day period. And they were very, very quick, and they were very young people that were very special in my life. And I was trying to support a bunch of people, including my own family. And I started to post, and it was just like, I didn't even want to read it. So I couldn't imagine anybody else wanted to read it. I was trying to dig deep into something that I just wasn't there for. And I think I did it, and it failed or flopped or whatever, because I don't really pay attention very much to the likes or the comments, but it didn't do as well. And it was because it wasn't true. I wasn't in touch with what was I trying to do? What was I trying to offer? What was I trying to service, as Lisa said? Being in service to other people when things are going wrong with you. I didn't have a headspace to do it. And so I blanked out for probably about a week and a half or 10 days. I probably had 30 messages from people going, hey, you haven't posted in 10 days. Is everything okay? Hey, do you need support? Hey, is there anything that we can do for you? Hey, do you need some content ideas? Like genuine people that I had never spoken to before were jumping on and going, are you okay? Is your family okay? It's not like you to disappear like this. Rachel and Lisa are so right. It's a sacrifice, and it's a community that you don't want to let down. And you want to always show up and give your absolute very, very best to them and really engage. So while I'm engaging, I'm not bringing in revenue. I'm not, helping a client or present with my children at that time. It is a sacrifice from all aspects. The last thing I want to say, Bob, really quick, is to what Lisa said. when you listen to understand and not to respond. Really be present in the listening. And sometimes that doesn't require a response other than them understanding that you've actually got it. Wow, that must be really tough. Or gosh, I can't imagine going through that. You don't always have to go, oh, wow, that's a lot. You know what I do in those situations is blah, blah, blah. They're not really asking. They're just asking to connect. And you can connect so much better when you're actually listening from your heart, not to respond.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. That's beautifully said. Beautifully said. Jill, I'm going to come back to you in just 1 second. I just want to say hi to Greg real quick. I don't know how much time he has, but Greg, why don't you tell us real quick about what you got going on now?
Sure. Thanks. Thanks so much for doing this, Bob, and thanks for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So I recently changed jobs. I'm with a company called Enhanced Compliance, also known as ECI, and very similar to what I was doing before in the pharmaceutical, biotech, and med device industries, in providing regulatory quality consulting to those folks, essentially making all the therapies that you take and I take and our families take to be safe and effective. And so we do that by helping companies stay in line with the regulations and providing support to get it to the market faster if possible. So that's one of the things. The other thing I started up with a friend of mine is a scientific podcast called BioTalk Unzip. And I'm kind of bringing the science and the medical, unzipping the medical stories of medical progress to the people. And then Chad is the scientific expert and helps me on kind of that end. And one of the things that, again, why I love this industry is one of our last guests, Dr. Russell Grant, came on, and he is in charge of R&D for LabCorp. It's a huge company. They build all kinds of diagnostic tools to help doctors diagnose what you may or may not have, right? And so he doesn't really see patients. He's probably seen a few in his day, but he gets hundreds and thousands of samples into his labs, and they're trying to figure out what's going on, right? And what I loved what he said was it was very human. It was still very connected to the people and the patients, not just the science and the rigor and just doing the job. He said, every sample is a human. Every tube is a question asking, am I okay? Mm-hmm. And for him to be so disconnected from the actual people and still finding a way to have meaning and care at that level really warmed my heart. And there's a lot of scientists who feel the same way.
Wow, that's amazing.
Encourage people that when you're donating to this organization and the people doing the research, especially at the nonprofit, they really, really, really care. They want to make a difference. And so that's kind of some of the stuff that I've been going on. Did a little bit of research on some of the companies, the big research leaders in big pharma, at least, Biogen, Novartis, Roche, Genentech, Merck, Sanofi, Teva, Bayer, a lot of these huge organizations that have developed drugs for MS or developing drugs. So there's great scientists within each one of those organizations that are trying to make a difference for people.
Yeah, it's amazing, and that is amazing. I love how you put that. How your friend puts that every tube is a human, that every sample is a human. That's that really kind of touched me there for sure, because it's hard to realize that, right? When I the last neurologist that I had, I don't have him anymore. It's simply because I was just someone coming through his doors. I mean, literally would sit down, for my 6-month checkup, and how you feeling? Okay, I got this going on. Feel like I got this. Okay, it's part of it. Here's your prescription, and off you go. So it gladdens my heart to hear someone talking that way just about the samples and the research they're doing, because that says that there are doctors out there, there are scientists out there that are doing it for the humanity, not just to process people through.
Right. And a lot of the scientists, they share their knowledge to the best ability that they can because they're trying to make the science better. They're trying to help people. They don't care that they're talking to someone at a competitive pharmaceutical company. So that's cool. But I hear what you're saying about medical doctors. I have my own experiences and issues with them where you feel like a number.
Yeah.
especially my dermatologists that I've been through a few, because they just, yeah, okay, all right, good, out. And it's like, slow down. You know, they don't make you feel like a human, let alone a patient.
Right.
I've only had 2 doctors in my lifetime that I really felt that were my doctors, that I really felt that actually cared. And one was Dr. Gregory Sweat. He was the best family practitioner I ever had. He would, no matter how busy it was, he would just sit down, kick back, and say, "What's going on today?" And he would sit and listen, and you felt completely heard. And I wish most doctors are like that. Unfortunately, most are not.
Yeah, the new MS doctor that I have now out of University of Chicago, she's very much like that. I mean,
Nice.
she spends the time. It's hard to get in to see her because she spends the time with you. And I have to say too, and I'm not just saying this because my daughter-in-law is a nurse practitioner, but the nurse practitioners at our local doctors, our family doctor's office, are amazing. Megan, I love her to death. If she were to tell me to go drain my blood and get new blood, I probably would do it because she's so amazing. But there's this new thing of using nurse practitioners instead of doctors, I think, is working, right?
Yeah.
Because they interact with you on a different level, right? They spend the time with you, and you know, maybe they don't have the same criteria of being able to give out care as a doctor does. They still have to report to the doctor, but they just come to you at your level, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think at least the good side of it is, right, they give actual good patient care. Although the businesses are probably doing it because they're cheaper than doctors.
Yes. Oh, that's exactly why they're doing it. They're more profitable.
Right. But I think that they're much more qualified, though, than I've had some physician's assistants that were put in place of the doctor. I'm like, why am I paying a specialist fee to see you? No offense. You know, you're asking questions to answers my questions.
Yeah.
I think there's something else too, because Bob, you know this, and Rachel, you know it too. My girlfriend's an oncology nurse, and we have a long running dialogue consistently about there's unfortunately and let's call it an area of improvement in our societal commentary about about understanding qualifications, right? And so a lot of times, like certainly I, growing up in the 90s, was exposed to this societal construct of like doctor here, nurse here, and then PA, you know, somewhere in the middle maybe. But understanding that, you know, that's not how knowledge works. It's not how experience works. There are a lot of times, like, people at different levels, nursing or PAs, have different kinds of like patient day-to-day experiences. So while you may need a certain qualification in order to write a certain prescription or to perform a certain procedure, it doesn't necessarily mean that we should prolong this conversation about like doctor better, PA all right, nurse at the bottom, like this kind of regimented understanding, which is based on a false sense of assessment of someone's skills, certainly of someone's care, certainly of someone's bedside manner, you know. And I'll share like an experience of mine. I have something called RCE, which is called recurrent corneal erosion in my left eye. And basically what it means is, if you've ever had that feeling of getting stuff in your eye, whether dust or dirt or whatever, imagine that, only every morning, and levels of pain that are like, I can't think, I can't process, because it's so intense. It basically is a ripping sensation, and it's just, my anatomy is a little bit bizarre, you know, like the way lenses sit on most people's eyes. I'm part of that small percentage where that doesn't really work for me. And finding the doctor that I have now, whom I love, right now, I see her kind of in a maintenance capacity every 3 to 4 months. Having her understand that, like, at some point, it's not science, it's an art trying to figure out what regimen will work given the tools and the prescriptions that we have available scientifically. You know, that's going to require more conversation. That's not going to be something that just, oh, okay, X plus Y equals Z. And I think that to Gregory's point and to your point, Bob, like understanding like that's going to take more of a dialogue than one can fit in maybe necessarily the hour allotted or the 30 minutes allotted. And that's a big part of the, I think for a lot of people in all various aspects of the medical, you know, experience, which we all have to experience at some point. Yeah, Greg, I hear that background noise too, actually.
Do you hear noise?
I do hear noise. Okay. I hear noise usually. So
okay.
Many years in the music industry. But that was something that my girlfriend actually pointed out when I went and saw this doctor first few times. She's like, oh, look, she didn't rush you out the door. You know, it was like, okay, if X doesn't work, then we'll try Y. If Y doesn't work, then we'll try Z. Like, it is going to require that sort of kind of flexibility. And I think that that's something I would hope to see introduced more into the medical dialogue. You know, Lisa brought up, like, we call it like soft skills, but they're not really soft skills. Like, it's just the other side of the, like, the medicine, the chemistry, you know, that portion of it.
It's basic empathy. It's giving a crap skills.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. It is basic empathy, and I think one of the, you know, Chef Jill, you embody that completely. You know, you and I have known each other for a while, and I watched you take care, and you know, watched your journey with your mom, and you were just so amazing. And it's a lesson that a lot of doctors could learn.
Thank you. Thank you. It's called compassion for your parents. But thanks for bringing that up, Bob. I wanted to mention too, a lot of people don't know that I have a double autoimmune condition, and it was found through blood work. And you know, we struggle and struggle and struggle every day, and you don't feel good. You wake up, you're in pain. Your joints are sore. And what I've learned, Dr. Irene, if I'm correct, a lot of this is caused from inflammation. Am I correct in that? Anyway, so I tried to get to the bottom of that.
Yes.
Yeah, inflammation, heart disease, all that stuff. And so, Gregory, I did do blood work, extensive blood work a couple of years ago, and I found that it's in the genes. You know, you have this autoimmune problem from my dad, and then you have this autoimmune from your mom.
Double
you know,
whammy.
so it's like double whammy. And then you got Hashimoto's and thyroid disease, mold. You know, they found lots of you can find lots of things through a blood work these days. I found out I have Hashimoto's. I had mold sensed in my, you know, and so all these things they suggest to go this way, and you know, don't eat gluten. Buy mold-free coffee with Bob. Drink this stuff like crazy, so it better be good for us, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I just wanted to let you guys know that I've had my own struggles, and through LinkedIn and finding positive things has helped me a lot. And I wanted to go on that side of the story too, is yes, we have these things, but here's the positive in it. We're helping others. We're getting proactive. We're serving others. We're asking, you know, what can we do for you? And getting out of yourself and your condition. You know, so when I found that out, I replaced all the food in my cupboards, and, you know, so I'm trying to internally do better by my choices, but externally, I've gravitated to what can I do? You know, how can I serve? And that's where 𝗠𝗪 𝗪𝗶𝗶 came up. And that was right after COVID, you know,
Mhm.
asking, hey, what can I do? And, you know, you got to listen to that inner dialogue that says, hey, why don't you start a hashtag that says sunrise around the world, because you want to promote positivity in the world.
Mhm.
And that's a good way to do it, because you're only one, you know, you're only one person. And by jumping on LinkedIn and doing just that one hashtag and having people send me, you know, photos. And can I read something that somebody sent me? It was,
Sure.
you know, the things that we're doing, you don't know that they're leaving a mark on the world. You don't know that until somebody sends you a message and say, hey, you've really changed my world just by showing sunrises. And for all of you, you know, we have done this and that and this and that, and we don't know that it's leaving a mark on the world. It is, and we're all called to do that in our own way.
Yeah.
This was a message, and I won't tell his name. Hi, Jill. It's been a while since my last message. I am now 2 years cancer-free. Never forget how much the little things matter.
Mm-hmm.
There were many days, excuse me. There were many days that your posts were the sunshine I couldn't see anywhere else. I just want you to know, even though we have never met in person, you have made a huge difference in my life. During some of the darkest moments, keep doing what you're doing. Sincerely. And sorry, I tear up because that's a very personal. So we are changing the world in our own way. And I just wanted to leave that message that whatever you're called to do is meant for you. So just jump in and serve others.
Jill, that's awesome.
That's beautiful.
Awesome.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
One thing real quick, and I know Rachel wants to add as well, is that we're all cultural architects. We're either making
that.
the world a better place, we're either improving culture, or we're making it worse. We're all having an impact. Which side do you want to make an impact on? And Jill, you're a great example of something small that can be something actually very impactful. Well done.
I just think we're called to that too.
Yeah.
You know, it's a calling. It drives us every day. It's not something that you just go, oh, hey, I'm going to help somebody. It's like a calling.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fulfillment.
Yeah, amen to that. And I want to remind everybody too that you have a YouTube channel for that has some amazing recipes on it and
Thanks.
cooking demonstrations.
I just posted a recipe. I did a recipe last night. Ginger sesame salmon. And that's a phenomenal one. But that's another thing, like you have been directing me, Bob. Hey, you need to, you know, be on a cooking show or something. You know, you never know where things will lead you. And I have felt prompted to work more towards that because cooking is a passion. Just so I can help others, because I've always felt like cooking is intimidating for some, and it shouldn't be. You just buy a pepper and put it on the pan. You know, it's just really that's my plight in life, is to show people it's just really not that hard.
My very first Coffee with Bob live, LinkedIn Live, was with Jill, and she cooked.
That was fun.
Remember that? That was fun. That was the very first live I did.
I made.
I'm gonna have to go try that out. That fish sounds amazing.
I can't wait to get in the kitchen with Jill.
Just go watch my YouTube channel. You can find it everywhere. You know, it's a saturated market nowadays. YouTube, everywhere. But you know what? It's fun just jumping in, and you know, I consider myself kind of a rookie in the YouTube thing, but I find that every day I'm learning little tips. You know, you just jump in and, you know, do better this day and don't do this another day and whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, people are going more and more to YouTube for learning than anywhere else now.
Yeah.
And Bob, you asked me to cook you something.
Oh,
I made some gluten-free.
Gluten-free cookie, nice.
Gluten-free chocolate chip cookies.
Oh, I want those.
Right?
Yeah.
Share?
So can we do a virtual? Yeah, send me your address. I'll send you some. I'm serious. I'm going to send these to Bob
You'll get
tomorrow. I've sent you a coffee mug with the office on it.
Yeah. That was
Yeah.
I got that. I was so surprised, and that was awesome. It sits on my table.
Yeah, it was broken into 20
The
million
first
pieces.
one was, the first one came broken. Yeah.
You're
gotta
like,
love
how could they
Amazon.
send this? Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to send you those cookies tomorrow, Bob.
Okay.
Okay, now I have a reason to go back to North America.
For cookies?
For cookies. Gluten-free. Come on.
Gluten-free. Yeah.
Well, I think what's amazing about all of this, we actually, Olivia, as she's here, I'm going to put her message up there. She's been watching the show since it started. So we're on 3.5 hours now. And I know it's a telethon, but it's only a 4-hour telethon because that's all LinkedIn will allow.
Hi, Olivia.
But Olivia's been there the entire time. So Olivia, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And she's a shared connection among a couple of us. And I'm just so happy that she's here and adding context, and adding comments galore. I mean, it's been amazing. I wish I know we have a whole bunch of YouTube watchers right now still too. And actually the number has grown throughout the show. What I don't know is how many, this is my first time streaming on X, so I don't know how far that's going to get. But this has been, I just want to thank all of you guys and those of you that have left already, Lisa, Stephanie, Kylie, thank you so much for jumping on this show. I truly appreciate it. And I'm just so blessed with all your connections and, and whatever happens as far as the fundraising for MS goes, that's a small part of it. Just all the benefit that you guys have given to the audience, and this will play on repeat on LinkedIn. I do these on a Friday, and I get more and more viewers on the repeat over the weekend because I don't post on the weekend. So I'll keep boosting it up, and hopefully, there are going to be those that are sitting there kind of silently suffering that are going to get some inspiration from you guys, and because you certainly have inspired me. So thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry, Rachel, you were going to say something?
I wanted to just take a moment and acknowledge all of you and all the incredible, phenomenal work that you're all doing. What Adam's doing, what Jill's doing, what Irene's doing, what Bob's doing, what Gregory's doing. Unless you're doing what we all do, it's hard to explain that, what we do. And really, people ask me all the time when I go to, what do you do for a living? I'm like, that's a long conversation. I think it's really hard to explain. But I want to acknowledge all of you. I think you're incredible. I treasure my friendships with all of you. Jill, you have brought so much sunshine to people's lives. That's
right.
You have, and I've seen it. Adam, you're incredible, phenomenal at what you do. And Gregory, what you have done and what you've created, and for using your voice for women, and what you have done to create a safer space for us on this platform. Thank you very, very much, because people truly don't know what we deal with on a daily basis, what we wake up to, what is sent to us. And so I want to acknowledge all of you. Mary and Bob, thank you. And we will all welcome. You're all extremely special human beings, and I want people to know that.
Appreciate that. That's very kind of you. Yeah.
Okay.
And you do so, you do so much for the community. You guys all do. Jill, Jill, I remember when I first met you, you had maybe 3 or 4 followers, and then, but that's a testament to the value that you're bringing to the lives that you are touching.
Thank you,
Rachel, you as well too. When I first met you, Rachel, you were, not as large as you are today, and then you just kind of blew up. And the reason you blew up is because of the impact, the positive impact that you have, right? And you guys have always made it not about yourselves. You've made it about others. Dr. Irene, Adam, you guys the same way too. You've always made it about helping someone else, right? And it's never been about self-promotion with any of you. Gregory, you included. I mean, I love your new podcast. I really do. There's so much information jam-packed in there, and it sort of demystifies, the medical profession a little bit, which is what I really like. And that's why I invited you and the other folks that were Stephanie and Kylie and Lisa and who else am I forgetting? Oh, and Bream. I invited you guys on because you've always put others in front of you, right? You always put the care of others first, and then let the chips fall where they may. So thank you guys. You guys are amazing.
Thank you, Bob. You're amazing.
Yeah. I'm not closing. We still have a half hour left. So.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you guys. So yeah, so those of you that are watching out there, if you're not following or connected or engaging with any of the folks that I've had on today, please do. These guys are amazing. There's always something good to get, and so Adam, you're going to be able to answer this one better than anybody else. That's the true power of networking, right? It's not about what you're going to get from somebody else. It's about what you're going to learn from somebody else, right? Or what kind of support you're going to get from somebody else, right? And I think the best networkers build the best communities, not from a transactional point of view, but from a growth and support point of view, right? Even before I shared with my community that I have MS, right? I was getting support from everyone. I mean, I engaged with Dr. Irene initially at her boot camp, not because I had MS, but because someone said, hey, you really need to meet this person. You really need to engage with this person. And it wasn't until midway through the boot camp that we were in one of our hot seat session, I think it was, right, Dr. Irene? A hot seat session or something like that, when I said, hey, you've gotten rid of your teachings and helped me get rid of some symptoms of MS that medication couldn't even get rid of, right? And stuff that I'm practicing today that helps me with those symptoms that medication couldn't even get rid of. So again, we didn't even start out knowing that. You didn't know I had MS at that point. I never even shared that I had MS at that point until the impact was seen. So I think that's
actually I found out from a post on LinkedIn.
Is that what it was?
Yes. Because I didn't know.
I don't remember. It's been that's how long ago it was, and how much we've grown and done stuff together. But that's what a true to me, that's what a true network is, right? And
I mean you're so zeroed in on what like a real network looks like. Because so often we see this, we hear this kind of colloquialism that like your network is your net worth, and now there's some truth in that access to opportunities. I use the word access all the time, and what I mean by access is not that someone's going to give you a job or a free job or invest in your company, just because you know them, but by knowing that person, you are able to hopefully learn from that person, to learn from their experiences, potentially gain valuable feedback, create mutually valuable and mutually beneficial dynamics. And building networks is what I call it's like the art of the possible, right? Like what could happen. And this is in a way something that you kind of have to be, I'll see you later, Rachel. I know you have to hop off. This is in a way kind of like what you kind of have to like be in startups to kind of get this. Like if you're in entrepreneurship, you do have to be somewhat masochistic on some level, because like this stuff is really hard. So there has to be a part of you that's kind of crazy a little bit, but if you can get past that, and the point of building amazing networks is like, not a lot of times people get daunted by what happens if I sound dumb, or I sound like a novice, or I sound like it's not like super polished, or I look kind of not super professional within the context of this community or organization. But I think a much more interesting question is, what happens if it goes right? What happens if you do hit a chord? What happens if there is someone in that audience, or that podcast audience, whatever it is, who really connects with you, who says, wow, this is something I can really learn from, or it really meant something to me. Like, building networks is about that potential of creating that connection, getting outside the silo, and really creating those touch points, those intersections. Rachel, why don't you come in?
Yeah, let's pause
really
for a second, because Rachel needs to go. So,
Adam, it's okay. I want to add, because listening to everybody, what you're saying. Adam, you brought up such a wonderful, incredible point, and I'm going to share this story because it's a big mistake people make. When I started out, right, then I'll just leave names out. Someone had sent me in DM. It's like in the beginning, I might have had like 100 followers or something, right? Somebody sends me a message in DM, you're never going to make it. You're never going to be successful. It's never, ever going to happen for you. And being who I'm like, well, thank you so much. I wish you a great day. And that's how I responded. And the biggest problem is that, and Adam, this is talking about like the beginning, it is so crucial to support people in the beginning of their journey, to empower them, to encourage them. We all remember the first day we started. We all remember the beginning, and somehow along the way, people forget that, and it's very, very sad. It's hard to see for me to watch, but yeah. So I'm just saying, like, people need to remember we all started at the beginning, and I always tell my network, you need to pass the ladder down.
That's right.
You need to pass the ladder down.
Pay it forward.
There's a really, really, Rachel knows this, Bob knows this. Before I was in tech, startups, business, whatever it is I do, I was in the music industry for over a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a really poignant saying in the punk world: if you forget us on the way up, we'll see you on the way down.
That's right.
And it's, I've been in that position of having gone to shows, taken pictures of people, bought t-shirts, like, just because I love what they're doing, I'm about it. And I've had both experiences of the group that like gets bigger and they remember you, and they remember like that fact that people came out when there were like 7 people in the room, and 2 of them are their girlfriends or partners or whatever. And then there are people who like get a little taste of some kind of success, and then it's like, oh, I was always successful. And it's like, no, you weren't always successful. And this is what I like want, even like solo entrepreneurs, when I talk to founders, is they need to understand this also. If you're a solo founder, or you run a solo company, or whatever it is, like, you're still not doing it by yourself. You have amazing employees, you have amazing team members, partners, amazing customers, amazing investors, like whoever it is that's around you that wants to see you succeed. Those people matter. The customers matter. Your employees matter. That's the cultural architect thing that I was connecting with, from what Gregory said, that like building those network, that's a network. Your network doesn't only have to be high-powered venture capitalists. Your network can be amazing team members, people who are interning at your company, people who want the opportunity just to talk to you, people who might have partnership opportunities, people who patronize your company as customers because they like your message and your mission and your product. And like, that's building networks and community. It's not this narrow kind of aisle of people. It's this wide set of all these different people from different kind of backgrounds and experiences and interconnecting circles. That's what I find makes it magnetic. And that's the kind of portion that's like getting away from the transactional. Like, talk to that person in Starbucks when you're standing in line. There's no downside to it. There's only upside.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Rachel, I wanted to comment that I must have been under a rock somewhere, but I finally listened to Brene Brown's one of her videos, and she said that after her TED Talk went viral, she was getting like massive hate, like comments, like literally vicious. And I thought of you because one of the when what you've gone through, because she said one of the comments was like literally like more Botox, less research. Like it was just like people were commenting on her appearance, and I know that you've had that too. And all I could think when I heard Renee say that, I was like, oh, Rachel's in great company.
Yep, I still get it, and then like I've told people, like, you know, I screenshot it, goes to my cybersecurity company. You know, people they don't fully understand the responsibility of being an influencer. It's massive. And I tell my network all the time, like, if you're going to do this, understand that it's a huge responsibility. And people say, well, you open the door for it. You know, the stuff that gets sent to me. I'm like, listen, I'm focused on the 99% of people. And those are the people who I focus on, the kind, positive, empathetic people. Those are who I look for every single day on this platform. And I tell people, like, just because someone's not posting doesn't mean they're not out there looking. When I jump on Adam's post or Greg's or yours or Bob's, and I see all the kind people that are responding to you guys, I go in there and I hit, Adam will tell you, I'm like, boom, boom, and I hit follow on every single person that's on your post. Why? Because they're being kind to my friends. And that's what matters to me. Now, if I see the opposite, I go through and I'm like, block, 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 block. Please, you know, please don't. Adam's one of my best friends. Please don't speak to Adam or Irene or Bob or Greg. Not okay. And this is how it really, really works. And for some reason, it is glamorized. You know, people think being an influencer is glamour. It's this. It's not. And I've tried. I did a video, I think it was like 2 months ago, saying I'm going to pull the veil back and tell you exactly what it means to do what we're doing. And the thing is, Irene, people, I've screenshot everything that's been written to me, and I do that to protect myself. Mm-hmm. It is not, this job is not for the faint of heart at all whatsoever. And I tell when they're just start, I mentor a ton of people that get on. I mentor the groups like 2025, and then I also help 65 to 85. And, you know, and I help them, you know, when I get on the platform, like, Rach, I need help. I'm like, let's do it this way. But I tell them, you know, when I have people calling me, crying, bawling their eyes out, doesn't matter, male, female, whatever, calling me broken down, shaking because of the things that have been written to them, that have been sent to them. It's not okay. It's just not okay. And there will be a day when I dream of a day when I wake up and there's not a nasty comment in DM or in the comment section. It's yet to happen. You know, I've never experienced a day where that doesn't happen. And Adam.
Well, I mean, can I double down on that just for a second? Because what I tell people when we talk about building networks, building relationships, and when I say networks, I mean, like, I don't mean only on LinkedIn or Twitter or X, whatever it's called. You know, like, I mean just like communities in general, that at some level, at some echelon, it's a concept I have called the 300 Club, which just seems to be true. Like, in any given community, there tend to be 3 to 4 or so 100 voices who these are the people who are consistently drawing, you know, that conversation out, really driving it forward. And it rotates in and out, right? New people come up, people get busy. But the reason I bring that up is once you get to that level, that echelon, it does become an everybody knows everybody dynamic. And it doesn't mean everyone always gets along with everyone because we're all people, but nastiness, things like that, less research, more Botox, right? Like I have lots of female friends who have received very similar kinds of messages on their, their LinkedIn lives, their Instagram lives, whatever. That stuff gets around in the context of like, if I see that, it means that I'm going to go tell everybody else who I consider to be serious person in the network, like, don't even bother wasting your time with this person. And it's not just online networks. Rachel knows this, Bob knows this. I'm very hooked up and connected with a lot of the startup communities here in Atlanta. There are a lot of really wonderful, cohorts and incubators to be a part of. And a lot of people know each other, right? So like on some level, they're like on competition, but generally there's a deep mutual respect for like building good, healthy community. And I have a good friend of mine, and I'll keep everyone's name out of this, but basically there was a founder who applied to this program, and basically this person who would have probably gotten into this program made some really frankly sexist comments. Okay, now why you would make those comments to a team that is primarily female is beyond me, or at all beyond me. Clearly that person then, my friend then said, okay, we're not going to accept this person, no matter how good their company may be. We're not going to be involved with that. Okay, but the interesting thing, what should happen, is she knows a lot of the other people in the ecosystem. And basically, while she didn't say, hey, don't accept these people, she said, hey, this was my experience. I would be careful, because that can really poison the well for the other great people who are in that program, right? So while there isn't an explicit blacklisting, there is a, hey, listen, I don't know if you want this person in your community because they're going to bring negativity. They're going to bring toxicity, and that stuff gets around. So when people are writing those comments, like, they should understand they're not just leaving it on one person's wall. It gets around to the community, and pretty quickly there's an acknowledgement of, oh, okay, this person's a troll. Like, we're not having a high level academic debate, which we can have. This is like, I don't even want you in my community at all. And so anyway, I wanted to double down on that because I see it so
correct. You're 1000% correct. You
guess.
nailed it. Yep. I agree.
Now, Greg.
So, yeah, I got to go. But thanks so much for the
Greg.
invitations. Great to see everybody. Great to hear all the interesting stories and all the positive feedback. And yeah, just keep doing what you're doing, and keep blocking the trolls.
Yeah,
I look forward to checking out your podcast.
Oh,
yeah,
great.
thank you for joining, and make
I'll
sure
post
you're connecting and engaging with Greg on all of his socials, and especially check out his podcast. The podcast is very cool.
What's the name again?
It's called
Gregory?
Bio Talk Unzipped. And it is on YouTube, Spotify, all the big podcast platforms. Bio Talk Unzipped.
Cool. I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah.
I have to
Great.
Yeah, I listen on Spotify. So
Thanks, Bob.
oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
All right.
Oh,
You bet.
there it is in the thing. All right. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it, Greg.
Take care.
And then there were
All right. And then there were three. Thank you, guys. I think
now that everyone's gone, what do we really think about that?
Thank you guys for sticking around. You know what? Season didn't join us.
I think she said that she put a message in the chat saying that she couldn't make it after.
Oh, she did. I
missed
on
Tabitha earlier.
On LinkedIn. Yes.
All right, I gotta check. That's too bad, because I really would have loved for you guys to get exposure to her, and for her to get exposure out there.
Adam, maybe
So,
you on
yeah.
my podcast. I think I've asked
I
you
would love to
before.
come
You're
on.
always too busy.
Oh, you know what? Honestly, it's been such a super busy time. And you know how it is in this world where like there's like 4 months of hurry up and wait, right? And then it's like everything gets crunched into like a 6-week timetable. And then, you know, like I was mentioning before, we had that death in the family. And so it was actually right after something called 𝗱𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗃𝗃. So I sit on the steering committee for 𝗱𝗵𝗃𝗃, which is kind of modeled on South by Southwest, but like a lot smaller. And last year was our inaugural year, and it's a really great kind of what's the word, initiative by, you know, the mayor's office is involved and Metro Chamber's involved, trying to get people to see that like Atlanta has. It's great talking to you, Greg. Actually, I'm happy he dropped by. But yeah, I would love to come on your show. We could talk about networking, relationships.
Absolutely.
And I also want to just take a moment because Greg just dropped it. To just give another plug to his Bio Talk Unzipped podcast, which I'm sure is probably filled with people way smarter than I am. But you know, I always try to. When Dara comes home and tells me, I mean, she's like, you know, she's an oncology nurse, so when she explains to me like the medical stuff, there's a part of me that's like, yeah, you're definitely the smart one in the relationship, because I'm still struggling through 10th grade chemistry. Yeah, we could talk about relationships and you know, networking and building. I think that it's one of those things that I've seen the landscape change in the last 18 to 20 months. It used to be very hard to have people understand like how it's different than sales and marketing. And Bob has seen this. We've had this conversation through the last couple of years. And now I'm in talks with a number of like universities, enterprise level companies, corporate companies, and be like, look, this stuff is important. This isn't like the soft skills kind of thing that's like, all right, whatever. This is kind of stuff that like makes people, you know, magnetic, makes teams magnetic. So anyway, that's my little plug.
Oh, absolutely. Let's get you on my podcast. And Bob has been on there a couple times. Rachel has been on there. I need to get our other group there on as well. It's called the Success Shift. So it's I get to talk about just about anything in that.
Oh, that's a great title. Where are you located again?
Right now I'm in Portugal. I've been living here for the winter. So yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's on my list one day. I've never been to Portugal.
I can't recommend it enough.
Ugh.
People are lovely. The food is lovely. The water is lovely. The sun is lovely. Especially coming from cold Canada, you know, there's a reason I'm here.
Yeah, don't know. Canadian,
so jealous.
Canadian, eh? Yeah. Yeah. No,
I've never been to Canada either, believe it or not.
Well, you know, when I'm back in Canada, then you'll have to come visit, you and your girlfriend. How's that?
Oh yeah.
Summertime is awesome.
Yeah, summertime maybe. I can't even get her to go to Boston in the cold.
So probably like if you want to be safe, May 1st to October 16th.
Yeah, that's
so
what it's about New England.
It's like all the it's basically it's you know, all the blooming and is happening in the spring, and in the fall we have all the changing of the colors. So it's
sounds amazing.
And there's tons of like water things to do and hiking and all of that. And if you're a skier and stuff and snowboarder, then yeah, in the wintertime too, but I'm not. So
I don't have the hand-eye coordination. So I did skiing once in Denver, and once was enough for me. I enjoy watching other people with the skill set to do it. Yeah. But I know my level. So
I'm know your limit, play within it.
Yeah. I'm not I'm going to adopt that. Know your limit, play within it.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
okay, so
not-
I said that here too. I have a Pilates instructor here, and he was like, "Am I pushing you too much?" And I said, "No, I'll let you know when." And they said, "Know your limit, play within it." He'd never heard of that, and I guess you guys haven't either. In Canada, it's like it was a big advertising by the liquor store, like to know your limit, play within it. Like
That's great,
so
actually.
Canadians know that.
Oh, that's like something my father says. Like when you have something to do, you're not really interested in doing it. He's like, embrace the inevitable and make it your own.
There you
And
go.
you're like,
That's
yeah,
awesome. I like that one.
you know what? I'll take that. I'll run with that.
Embrace the
so I would say-
inevitable, make it your own.
I always say the Clint Eastwood Dirty Harry line. A man's got to know his limitations.
There you go.
Uh,
There you go.
well, if we get into music and movie references, we'll be here all day. I'll turn into a
Yeah. That's unfortunate, but true. Hey, it's I'm in the Chicagoland area, and it's actually snowing again.
Oh, we're in what we call here in Atlanta. We have what we call colloquially fake spring, and we have the pollinating, and it's basically like it was warm for a while, and then it snaps cold, and it's like, so we have spring 1, 2, 3, and 5, and I think we're in spring 2 here. So when people are like, "Oh, it's warm," I'm like, "Yeah, you just wait. Why don't you put all your winter clothes away and talk to me in a week?"
Yeah, we had that. We were actually 70 last week, and then all of a sudden it just dove right down to 30s. And today, well, now the sun's coming out, so maybe it'll shift back again. That's Chicago for you, though.
I won't tell you what it is here.
Yeah, I know. It's gorgeous there. I get it.
No one needs to feel any more badly that we're not in Portugal, okay?
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm not being smug when I say that, because I really don't want to make you feel bad.
I want to go to Portugal just because I'm such a history nerd, and Lisbon's on my list one day.
Oh, do you know where I was last Sunday? We went exploring, and we went to Sagres, which is was considered the end of the world, right? For Europe. In other words, it was when they thought the Earth was flat. This was like the farthest west point of Europe, and all of the great explorers left from Sagres to head out, and first of all to explore down the coast of Africa. There was a cartographer's school there, so there's a whole fortress you can go see, and amazing,
so jealous.
just so it was so beautiful. So tons and tons of history, like Roman bridges and castles and.
That's cool. Yeah,
It's
we want to get there. Our granddaughter lives in Portugal, so we're gonna try and get there one of these days. Not anytime soon, though, unfortunately.
So
I'll be back, so you guys can come visit me. So.
Well,
right,
I'm going to. Yeah, we're gonna wrap up because I'm gonna probably hop out and have a little bit of late lunch, and I have some errands to do before the business day closes.
Yeah, I've actually got business to do before the business day closes. That's the end of my work.
Me too. Just un poquito. Well, because today we announced our special guest for our next LinkedIn local ATL event. And I'm super excited to have, he's a good friend of mine. His name is 𝗱𝗏𝗏. He runs, he's general manager, for a company called Drive Capital, which I believe is a VC firm based out in Columbus. They have a very big Chicago presence, so funny enough. But yeah, our next LinkedIn local is on April 16th here. So we got to go do a little bit of promo work for that. It'll be fun.
Anytime you need someone to come, I'll come and help, Adam. You just let me know.
Oh yeah, well we're gonna have more stuff this year, which we'll be announcing. Schedules got all crazy in the springtime.
Yeah. Actually, you know Corey Warfield, right?
Oh yeah, of course. Of course.
He and I are trying. We're going to try and get a LinkedIn local going in Chicago. We've tried a couple times, and it just never seems to.
Well, let's like talk about that and see if like I can help out a little bit. We've had a really good reaction to it here. So if there are some tips we can share, cross promotion, I'm happy to do that because it's great fun.
Yeah, that'll be great. Well, I really appreciate you guys helping out and co-hosting along with me. Dr. Iyᵉ, thanks for being on from the beginning. Adam, thanks for being on for so long too. I really appreciate it. It would have been very difficult, I think, for me just to do it all by myself. At least it allowed me the opportunity to get a bio break in there. So there's that. But you know, and I appreciate you adding to the conversation as well too. I think it helps, right? I don't think we raised anything, quite honestly, but that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, but I do see that we've got quite a few viewers on YouTube, which is awesome, and we had a little bit of traffic with LinkedIn. I don't know how to do that for X yet, but I'll get on and figure that out. I know. Oh, here we go. Olivia wants to get a LinkedIn and Olivia, thank you so much for being on for the entire.
Thanks, Olivia.
Let's applaud Olivia for being on for 3 hours. That's amazing.
Oh, that's amazing. I don't do anything for 3 hours. But if Olivia wants to, if she wants to send me
if either one of you guys aren't connected with Olivia, make sure that you do. She has some amazing posts as well too.
Awesome, Olivia.
Some amazing content on there. And Dr. Iyᵉ, I really want you to reach out to Kylie. I think there's some synergies there that you guys can make. And I'm glad, Olivia. I think this is so cool for fundraising. Yep. I hope it helps. I mean, I'm kind of surprised. Last year, I didn't do this telethon last year, but I just posted that I was doing the MS Walk, and I got a bunch of donations through LinkedIn, and I really thought I was going to be able to surpass it this year. But ooh, look at that sun! But it didn't happen yet, so we'll see. And we'll keep it going.
So next time we need to walk and talk on the telethon.
Yeah, that would be something.
Right? We could do an MS walk and talk.
I might do. That's a great idea. I'm going to do a live stream from the MS walk.
There you go.
On LinkedIn.
There you go.
That's a great idea. All right. Well, all right. So thank you guys. Thank you. I can't thank you enough. I love you both and appreciate you guys so much. And I am so blessed with your connections and most importantly with your friendships. I really couldn't do this without you guys. And Adam, we still need to circle back because we're still going to do our show together. And you got a lot going on. I'm no pressure there, but we talked about it. And I think it's a great idea. I'd like to do that. And
we'll get it done. We'll find a way to get it done for sure. I am going to bid you both goodbye for right now. Go and grab something to eat and get some stuff done. Iyᵉ, you and I will circle back on finding a good time. And
I think that's the link. Let me just double check.
Okay, let's see here. Okay.
For your podcast.
Open this.
See what you can find.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely do it, Adam. Definitely do it.
It may be. We may have no slots available. Why is it giving me June? Okay, so
it says no slots probably for the rest of the year, unless it's an incorrect link. But we can, just drop it to me on LinkedIn and we can figure it out.
I will. I'll get you another link, or we may have to do it the old-fashioned way because being in Portugal, I'm only doing certain hours. So
that's fine.
But I'll be back in North America and we can get it set up then too as well.
Sounds great.
Cool. All right, so I'm gonna end the show. I'm gonna end the show now, guys, because LinkedIn's going to kick me off in like a minute and a half. So thank you all so much. And thank you to everybody who's watching on YouTube and Twitter and LinkedIn. I appreciate you all. if you didn't get a chance to donate, please donate. It's for a worthy cause, and it's tax deductible. So thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, guys. Take care, Bob.
Bye-bye.